Wait, I can't hear EJ right now.
Did you unmute him yet?
Yeah.
You should be so lucky.
Same with Chris.
Can you hear me?
Yeah.
It's just you and me, Drew. It's okay. We can't let the bad men hurt us anymore.
Oh my God.
We've escaped.
I give up trying to be a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man.
Console Crusade podcast. I think everybody is a little hungover today. I'm not quite sure one way or the other, whether booze induced or otherwise. Chris is giving me the face of a man who might still be drunk. EJ Olsen, I'm with Nick Durheim.
I'm not drunk, but I did have some drinks last night, including hard Mountain Dew Baja Blast, but zero sugar, so it's like, it was weird.
They're
very
yucky.
strange.
They're yucky. I don't like them. Chris Gillyford.
I'm not hungover, god damn it. Like, I had a respectable amount of sampled bourbon over 2 days, which I think amounted to like 3 tastings. I didn't even drink that much. I'm tired from being in the car going to 14 distilleries, but it's a good tired.
You may not have been fucked up, but you done did do fucked up. Come on, brother.
I done did.
And joining us for, I don't know, the 4th time?
Sure.
Drew Stevens.
Hi, I'm here too.
We're back. We're back. Last time we chatted on the pod was the beach, which was March, which was so long ago now.
Mario movie.
Years ago.
Yeah, I joked on the podcast, I don't know when it was, last month or whatever, that I can't get your voice out of my head whenever we make the Mushroom Kingdom, here we come.
I heard that, and I'm so glad that I live in some deep recess of your brain.
Drew could just replace Chris Pratt.
I've been telling people that for years.
Yeah, right. So today we're going to do a little Mario Wonder impressions, and then we're going to do a deep dive on Spider-Man 2, which, Chris, while you were away, I talked about how I wrote over 2,000 words during my playthrough on this game. Every time something came up, I would write about it just to catalog my thoughts. And so you guys have that outline sans 95% of the things I wrote. But I'm looking at a document with so much text in it. It's several pages. It's unhealthy. But it's good practice for if we ever start doing written reviews, eventually.
That's great. No, I'm really glad you did that. And I sat down and wrote out in greater detail the stuff that was important enough for me to remember. So I also wanted to take some good notes, be a little more specific, since we are not only have a guest here to offer some great takes, but that we are talking about a game really, really close to when a game came out for, I think, the first time. And that's really exciting to me. And so I really wanted this to be solid. So I'm ready.
I have my notes app that I put notes in. So
Okay, so you got notes.
I got notes.
You got notes. Okay, very good. Let's start off with a little Mario Wonder. It's a game that I don't think... Nick, you're further than the rest of us. I've only scratched the surface. I think, Chris, you only started like last night with Tiffany, right?
We are through World 1. We had almost all of World 1 done the first couple days, and we finished World 1 last night.
Nick, how far are you? How are you liking it so far?
I finished 3 worlds. Spoiler for after the 3rd world, but it allows you to choose what your 4th and 5th and 6th worlds are. So I'm excited to choose my 4th world. I have not done that yet. I'm enjoying it quite a lot. This is a fantastic Mario game, and I haven't been interested in playing any of the new Super Mario games, really. Like, I've tried a level or two. It's just it doesn't feel like the way I want it to feel, or it doesn't look the way I want it to look or sound. And immediately Wonder was just intriguing and captivating, and it's been a really good time. It's pulling me through. I love all of the Wonder Seed changes that they do in the levels. Like every time it's something fun and interesting, and on more than one occasion I'm just like actually exclaiming aloud, either with laughter or what the fuck am I looking at, or there's a lot of really fun ones. I can't remember which one it was that you and I did, EJ, that was just like we were just like laughing at how ridiculous it was. Was it the top down one where we're just like running around? It's like, what this is very
this?
Different. Yeah, exactly.
That's awesome.
You could talk about them pretty freely, I feel like, because you can't spoil it because there's hundreds of them. They're all unique and different. So even if you talk about one, I mean, I don't want to spoil it. I don't want to talk about all the ones that really like blew me away, but needless to say, there's been many and more that have done so.
The first night, so I went out at like 8:30 and I picked up my copy of Spider-Man and Mario at GameStop. GameStop, unfortunately, okay, my local place didn't get their shipment in, so Spider-Man took like 2 hours to download and install the patch and rip the disc to the console. So I got to play Mario. I played the first like 5 or 6 levels or something. And I was sitting in the front room with Sarah and I play World 1, 2, where you get the flower.
Piranha plants on parade, dude.
And those little bastards start singing and I was like, this is insane. And I looked at Sarah and I was like, Nick's going to lose his fucking mind when this happens for the first time. I think that's such a
so
Nick
good.
thing.
It's so good. And it's the attention to detail is such that while they're singing, if you kill any of them, their vocal track cuts out.
Yes!
And there's still the instruments playing in the background until another plant comes out and picks up the song again.
Yes, it's so good. It's so cute. And I hope there's more of that kind of thing. And I'm not terribly far in the game, and I played a few levels with you, Nick, but I hope there's more of that, because that to me, I was like, this is something I've not seen in a Mario game. This is adorable. It's fun. And, you know, for me, and I can't speak to this because I've played so little of it, to me, the fun in a Mario game is like the increasing difficulty and like rerunning and rerunning until you've like mastered the level. And modern Mario games like have none of that. And that's what I loved Mario Maker, was that reintroduced, like, all right, we're gonna grind some levels and then we're gonna get to the speed run, try to beat my buddies' times, and that was sort of unique to Mario Maker. But so far this game has not been difficult, but there's so much charm. It's just sort of a fun little romp.
You say it's not been difficult, but there have been difficult levels. There was a level that we played for a solid like half an hour, I think. Just like we're just trying to grind it out as a wall jump challenge, and it's like in the special world, so it's like, you know, actually 5-star, hard to get, hard to do everything just right. And with 2 people, it's even harder because the camera follows the person who's ahead. So if EJ, the camera's following him and I pass him, then it suddenly shifts to me, and that can like throw off your timing a little bit, which isn't ideal. Like that's not the way I would have wanted it to do, but I don't know how you would do that if it's just zoomed out more or what. It's not really built for that, but it's fun playing within the challenging confines of how they did implement it. Like it's not annoying to me, at least.
That was the funnest level we played together because of the challenge, but also the hilarity of just how fucked up it was trying to work around each other. And we ended up beating it by like baton passing, basically. You died, and as you fell to your doom, you popped me out of my bubble, and I was able to finish the level. And so it was kind of just like a dumb way that it's not how you're supposed to do it, but it was fucking funny.
Yeah, that, I mean, it wasn't as hard, but it was also as maddening. Was the other challenge level where it was it was another wall jumping kind of one, but it was for a badge specifically that gives you a vertical jump after you jump against a wall instead of a jump away from the wall, so you can sort of like double jump on walls. And it had these rotating platforms that would like, it was like a rod up and down, and it would spin 180 degrees, and you had to like climb up it before it spins, or if when it's spinning you have to be on the right side so that you're on top and then go up the other side. And it was maddening. It's like a single tile that you're standing on with 2 people and one's falling and you're like, no, don't take me with you. It's just ridiculous.
Oh man. Yeah, I definitely want to try. I mean, I hope it grabs me. Like, I wish I could get Sarah to play it, because it's just hard to like get into a platform like this by myself. I don't know. That's just me. But
we'll just have to schedule a play date, play on Discord, just chat with each other. And when you're playing online, we would see each other, but the camera isn't following you, and you can't kill enemies in my world. It's just like us fucking around and chatting while we're both playing the game together. We could be like, hey, let's run that level again, but so you can beat it faster, you know, that kind of thing.
I'm just super down to give it a go. And I hear that the online is as little as it's implemented. I mean, it works, you know, it's not like you're playing in a laggy, choppy, crappy, you know.
Right. It's got a lot less to synchronize between worlds. It's just purely your player location, not what enemies you're also in contact with and how you're affecting each other's world. It's just your world, my world, but we're superimposed on top of each other. So I think that's a good compromise.
If they can figure out Mario Kart, they should be able to figure out the rest of this shit. That's all I'm saying, okay? How is Mario Kart that much different than Super Smash Brothers? I don't know. I don't get it.
I think it's a little bit different.
Smash Bros has to be more precise, I guess, but it's the same
Smash
concept.
Bros runs at 60.
Does the Mario Kart 8 online not?
I don't think your opponents have to run at 60. What's the pull rate have to be on a racing game?
I don't know, man, but those blue shells, bro, it's got to be precise as fuck.
They shoot that blue shell from 7th place and it takes 30 seconds to get to you. So I think they can calculate what's happening by then.
They've got some leeway. Chris, how have you enjoyed playing it with Tiffany?
We're having a really good time. You know, of course, the initial like reacclimation period of playing a game with one's spouse or partner where you're like, oh, okay, I need to put like those glasses on. Just because my usual like semi grumpiness at myself when I'm trying to be precise with platformers, like, and this hasn't happened, but it could unintentionally read as like being salty at your significant other, which I'm not being because I love that we are playing this together and we're having a really fucking good time. But after that, yeah, we're just having a blast. Went back and before we moved on to World 2, got a couple levels where we had missed the top of the flagpole just so that everything's all filled in. So like if we don't do it now, we're probably going to abandon that particular pursuit in general because I'm going to be like, well, we're not 100% cleared, so who cares? And I didn't want that, and she didn't want that. But yeah, just having a great ass time. You know, the first day that we were going to sit down and play it last, I think Saturday, I put this in one chat or the other. We're like, all right, so we know this is going to be like a real weird one. So let's eat a gummy and wait. Like I'll play Spider-Man until the gummy hits for both of us, and then we'll start Wonder. So we with the gummy hits, we start Wonder. And we go going through the first level and we get the Wonder Flower and all the pipes start like popping up and down and a pipe like crawls out of the ground and starts like crawling like a worm. And I'm like laughing hysterically. And Tiffany's like, I need this level to be done. This is, this is a lot for me right now. And we got done with the level, and then we get into the next, which of course is like the Piranha Plant course, and we're both just fucking howling with laughter at like, oh my God, this is so fun and so silly. And it's been that way every time, even in some like really challenging ones, like one of the levels down through the pipe in the bottom of the plateau, that the Wonder Flower drops you way down. You drop way down into this like pipe area and then get the Wonder Flower and all the pipes start rising and you can absolutely get like caught and crushed on the left or right sides under pipes that are extending horizontally. Activity's just like dying and getting stuck in the side trying to like avoid the spike. I don't remember what the hell their names are. The dudes that throw the spike balls. Is it just called Spike?
He's just called Spike.
God,
Very original.
So
the green dude, yeah.
Fucking lazy. Yeah, he's like squished by pipes and just like laughing, and her ghost is just like swimming up and trying to get to me. And yeah, we're having a really, really good time. It is a delightful game. It is it runs extremely well. It is beautiful. It looks great. It sounds great. A lot of the small changes in the way that things sound from the new Super Mario Bros. Series, I think is significant because in a 2D platformer Mario game, a lot of connective tissue is going to feel really similar. And that was one big thing that people were concerned about as well. Is this really going to not be just another new Super Mario game? And I'm like, okay, first of all, that's a stupid question because it doesn't matter as long as it's good, right? But I think that they have introduced enough stuff that the way it sounds, looks, feels is different enough. And of course, the Wonder Flowers are just such a great mechanic. It feels distinct. This feels like a new, an original 2D Mario game. I can't say new because Nintendo has absolutely ruined that as a descriptive word for everything.
Those assholes.
I know, but it feels great. And I think it's fantastic. And, you know, Tiffany is somebody who's beaten Mario World like 7 or 8 times. Like that's a game we played together, passing the controller when we were early in our relationship. And she's like, I'm enjoying this more than that. And that is a really beloved game for her. So I think it stands up. I think it's one of the best offerings they've had in the 2D Mario space in literally 15 to 20 years. It's awesome. It is a really, really good game so far.
There's a lot more character in this game, like the art style and the character animations and the backgrounds. Like there's so much more happening, and level to level, it's so much more diverse than the new Super Mario Bros. Games, where it was just like you have 4 types of levels and every level falls in one of these archetypes, and it becomes very stale very quickly. It's funny because the physics of the game Like everything is ripped directly from New Super Mario Bros. It's the same jump, it's the same run. The biggest change for me that I noticed right away was like the momentum of your character.
You slide a lot less.
You come to a stop when you want to come to a stop. You don't just keep going and going and going and going. That's like the biggest change. But otherwise, it's like, yeah, the jumping is the same and the spin jump is the same. I mean, it's identical to the frame. So it's funny to look at that and say, oh, it's so much different. But all of these things together make it, like you said, Chris, a very original experience. And there's just a lot of charm there. And for a lot of people, that's what you want out of a Mario game, you know? To me, 2D Mario is more akin to like a Kirby game now than it is to like a classic 2D Mario. I think that's fine. Like, I like Kirby.
You only say that because you haven't played enough Kirby. Kirby is a lot less. Like, it asks a lot less of you than a Mario game. Any Mario game. The easiest Mario game is harder than the hardest Kirby game.
Well, okay.
I think that's an accurate take. I think that's a fair take. Like, we were just trying to do Return to Dreamland Deluxe or whatever the port was, and we got through like 4 or 5 levels and then we just stopped playing it. And I was like, do you want to pick this back up? And she's like, not really. Like, this is really boring. Like, it's just really easy and repetitive, and Babby's platformer, you know, like Yoshi and Kirby are kind of occupying the same headspace. No, I mean, Mario's
just so unfortunate.
We've lost a lot of lives on Wonder. Mostly trying to like go for shit that we're not sure is going to be a secret, or trying to get a 10 coin that requires like a little bit quicker reflexes. I love the way that like Luigi's running animation, his legs just like kicking desperately, and how focused he looks, and his hat's flapping, and almost.
Bro.
God, it's just great. And like the end of level things, you know, where he, you know, thank you. Like, just all of it is so fucking charming and lovely. Like, I just want to like give
Wowie zowie.
Wowie zowie. Wowie
Dude,
zowie.
I loved the first time I realized this was at Nick's house, where I'm running with a red shell and then I jump and float with my hat, and you're holding the shell with your feet instead of your hands.
What?
It's so good.
Or as an elephant crouch jumping, and you're just like,
Boing, boing.
it's so stupid.
What a goober. What a goober.
Squishing into pipes, and like the half second of extra time it takes to like squish the elephant into the pipe. Like, I did the little bit of struggle. Like, I love it.
Have any of you guys noticed, like, without being told, would you have noticed the absence of Charles voicing Mario and Luigi?
It sounds different, but I don't think it's like, it sounds like someone doing a Mario voice. It sounds like Mario. It sounds like Luigi. I don't think they did a bad job in those estimations. It just sounds like a slightly different direction, because there's a lot of different sounds in this game. Like the music it's a lot of remixes of old tracks, like the Underground theme is the Underground theme, but it's a little different. And I think even the art style, like, it doesn't look like the way Mario's looked for the past 20 years, where it's been very, very by the numbers. Like, this is what Mario looks like in every single sports game, every single party game, every single kart game, every single platforming game. This is Mario. And now it kind of looks like the first Nintendo Power issue, where they have the claymation Mario from Mario 2. It kind of has that more distorted, chibi cartoon. It looks like a cartoon. It looks like a different take on Mario, and I really appreciate that. And the sounds just sort of marry in with that, the voice performances.
I put on Reddit the other day, there was some debate about, because it was revealed Kevin Afghani is doing the voices for a lot of these characters. And there's talk that he was like the guy who does the Nintendo Switch Direct, like, swinging on to Nintendo Switch. And then so people were talking about the flowers and how that's Kevin Afghani, and some people said, no, it's Mick Winger. And then Mick Winger came out and confirmed that he is doing the flowers, and his voice is so similar to the other guy. And I'm like, does Mick Winger do some of the things? So anyway, I don't know. It's all like these guys are very involved with Nintendo. But I said on Reddit, I was like, yeah, to me, they are different voices, but they're still creepy little men. And like, what more can you ask for? Like, Charles Martinet has a very like soft, sort of round timbre. This guy has a much harsher, kind of like he's doing a Wario thing, or trying not to do a Wario thing. Like, there is a difference, but it doesn't fucking matter. It's Mario. Like Chris Pratt did a fine Mario. You know what I mean? Like we got over that really quick. Like whatever.
You had me till then. Yeah, I mean it's slightly different, but to be totally honest, like even Charles' Zone like performance of this character has understandably changed with time as he's gotten older and his vocal cords have shifted, and so I definitely have not noticed anything. And Tiffany's like, Peach literally sounds the same as she did on the Nintendo 64. Like,
because it's the same voice actress for Peach.
Are there any other like full phrases other than wowie zowie? You can call that a full phrase.
No, they're not like monologuing. There's no soliloquies in Mario Wonder, but that would be so amazing. Can you imagine you hit a Wonder Seed and then like the lights go down, they sit in a chair and they start performing something from Streetcar Named Desire or something? Like what the
Everyone
fuck?
just starts monologuing.
Oh man.
Tiger, put down the bottle.
Drew, are you gonna pick this game up?
I don't know. As I get older, it is harder and harder for me to sit down and play a video game, and I hate that. So like at this point I'm getting like 3 games a year maybe, and Spider-Man was my game, and it's just, especially for a side scroll, a 2D side scroller, I don't know if I'm shelling out $60-$70, whatever this one costs for a 2D side scroller.
Yeah, that's like a small Lego set that you could spend time with instead.
I know, exactly.
Yeah, that'll get you 1/8 of an X-Wing.
Look at all
Dude,
this.
that UCS Venator that they just dropped.
Oh man, I don't got room for all that.
I don't got room for all that. $650 for all that. That's what I don't get.
I have to be very discerning with the Legos. I still have like 3 UCS sets in my closet that haven't been built because I have nowhere to put them.
Same.
And God forbid I build it and then dismantle it right away. That's pain.
Drew, did you see the that they're you probably did, but they're releasing a Dune set that is the ornithopter from the Denis Villeneuve film, including like 6 minifigs, and one of them is the Baron Harkonnen in the scene where he like rises up in his hover suit with the long ass fucking suit. I was like, that is so great. That is worth the price of admission alone. But no, yeah, I'm gonna be buying that for sure. I mean, it was good stuff. I bought the collector set of Evangelion 3.0 plus 1.11, which was the most recent rebuild. I bought the Yu Yu Hakusho 30th anniversary Blu-ray set because that's a show I used to own in its entirety that's really important to me. But that I
gotta buy that.
Lost in the
divorce. On my list.
It's a great dude. Do you want to buy my set?
If you don't want it,
no, I'm literally trying to return it, and I got it on sale at Amazon, so I'll give it to you for the sale price. Like plus,
I'll for sure buy it from you. It's been on my wish list for, or my save for later for like a month, and I've been like,
that's gonna save me on a lot of hassle of returning that. So we will talk more.
There you go.
Yeah, it just for whatever reason I hate it, but it takes a lot for me to sit down and play a video game. A lot of it probably, you all sounds like are all playing Mario Wonder couch co-op with someone, which makes it a little easier to sit down and spend time playing it. I don't have that option.
You can invite your friends over any time, Drew.
I don't want friends in my house.
I'll come play Mario with you.
This is my house.
Okay.
Jesus Christ. Drew has hoarded so many Legos, you can't take a step in any direction without putting your foot on a 2x4 brick and just screaming in agony.
Like Indiana Jones fucking booby traps. Like, it's to keep my loved ones away.
No, the booby trap set hasn't released yet. That's for Q1 2024.
Oh, yeah.
Especially with this probably being the last full year of the Switch. It's hard for me to invest in anything that's going to come out on the Switch that I could just buy later for cheaper and play it on a better console.
It won't be cheaper.
It won't be cheaper, but it'll play better.
Are we doing Bro Year's Eve at your house, buddy?
I know it's more out of the way for everyone, but I'm happy to have you guys here.
How far are you from Gresham? You're not that far.
45 minutes.
Right? Oh, that's...
with traffic, maybe an hour.
I do not want to make that fucking death drive from Milano on New Year's Eve with a bunch of drunk people on the roads. That is a terrifying drive, one of the best of circumstances.
I mean, that is the drive that obliterated my last car, so...
No, it's a sleepover. We're having a sleepover.
Okay, all right, we'll figure that out.
Come on, guys.
Let's jump over to Spider-Man. All right. There are a couple ways we're going to do this. All right.
Swinging on to the PlayStation 5.
Oh, Mick Winger, where are you?
I just say that collector's edition of the PS5, the like side plates and everything, was nice looking for Spider-Man.
Did you pick it up?
Oh, I wish I did, but I did not. But I know they did the red PS4. This PS5 blew it out of the water.
Dude, I bought the red PS4 Pro, and then after I got the PS5, I was like, I don't need a PS4 anymore because the PS5 is the best PS4 you can own. And I got rid of it, and now I'm kind of like, now that it's on the top 100, I'm like, I wish I had that back just as a collector's piece. But I was like, I don't really care about it. I'm like, oh, I like that game, and this was a fun piece, but I will never play this PS4 Pro again. And so I got rid of it, and now I'm like, that was a good shelf piece. I'm an asshole. But whatever. I'll buy a new one later. Whatever.
You need more shelves.
Spider-Man 2. I've got a little system here. The good, the okay, the obnoxious, and the bad. Otherwise known as the Goob scale. This is how we are going to evaluate this game.
I do find it telling that nothing is above good in this scale.
Uh-oh.
This is an EJ scale for sure.
We don't need to get all crazy with it. There are good things, there are fine things, there are bad things.
Are there great things, EJ?
It doesn't matter. Good, great. It's all in the same.
Is it?
It's all in the same area. It doesn't matter.
We call it positive instead of good.
Then it's the poop scale, and I don't like that. I like the goob scale.
Great isn't the grand, the gorgeous.
I figure, guys, we will go through and talk about. We'll just sort of round robin, talking about something we thought was good. And we'll just start positively. And talk about all the things we really liked about this game. We will disagree. There are things that you guys will have liked that I thought were okay or even bad, and we'll talk about it. But we'll just sort of round robin these topics and go through the good, the okay, the obnoxious, and the bad, and just break this game down.
First of all, I love this a lot. Second of all, do you want to, if we hit a can of worms, do you want to just like pull tab that fucker open right there, or do you want to just go I'll talk about, or like, well, I'm going to put that in my other, I can talk about that when we get to such and such column, or like immediately just, well, that's in my annoying column, or that's in my bad column, and just do that, or do you want to really stick to column by column?
No, I want it to be natural. I want us to all have a chance to talk about things we want to talk about. So if someone is like on one, we don't need to derail them, but yeah, if we want to dive into something as it comes up, let's do it. This is not going to be a comprehensive. We're not going to play-by-play the story. We're not going to talk about every little detail.
Yeah.
But probably pretty close. I should have prepared you guys for this. I think we should start off the way we've done recently for reviews, where we kind of do it at the end. But I think we should start off with our little 2-sentence review and our review score, so we can sort of set the table for sort of how we're about to talk about this. So I'm sure you guys don't have a 2-sentence review written, but
I've got one ready.
Oh, Drew, kick us off. Spider-Man 2. What's your review?
It's a shame that they revolutionized fast travel in a game that nobody ever wants to fast travel in.
Oh, interesting.
Fast travel in this game, I can see every other, big open world sandbox type game trying to do something as similar to this as possible, just because of how instantaneous and how incredibly precise it is. But they put it in a game where the most fun aspect of the game is moving around from one place to another.
The best aspect is the traversal.
Yeah.
So that kind of sums up a lot of, I think, the game design ethos for Spider-Man 2. What would you rate Spider-Man 2 on a scale of 1 to 10? Decimals allowed.
Decimals allowed. If the first one was, I would give the first one like an 8.7. This one, I would probably put maybe an 8.5.
Okay.
It's just below the first one, almost purely for length of the game.
What did you think of Miles? What would you have rated Miles? I know it was shorter, but
it was advertised as a shorter little spin-off thing, so I don't have any problems with the length of that.
And Miles, it was $20 cheaper.
Very true. Plus, I bought the $20 cheaper Miles that came with the PS5 remastered original Spider-Man, so
that's great value.
I got my money's worth. Miles' story was better than the first one, I think. I like the implementation of the Venom powers better in Spider-Man 2 than in Miles Morales. Maybe lower, maybe like 8, maybe a solid 8.
Oh wow. Okay.
So I think Miles is probably my least favorite of the 3, not for any discernible reason that I can really pick out.
Sure. I guess to preface my little 2-sentence review, Chris, are you still ruminating on yours?
No, I've got it.
Okay. I'll be quick. I liked the first Spider-Man game, thought it had its flaws, but I think the base formula was just so fun that you just didn't care the issues that it did have. Miles Morales, I thought, addressed a lot of those issues in a really organic way, and because of the length of the game, I think a lot of that, the pacing issues, like, it fixed a lot of that for me. And I've said a million times on this podcast, the collectibles were more meaningful, more tied to the story, and seeing this more intimate story of like this kid in the neighborhood and not this superhero taking on like these gigantic threats threatening the whole city. Miles' character really resonated with me in a way that Peter's maybe didn't, even though like I love Peter Parker and I love Yuri Lorenthal's take on Peter Parker, but Miles' character was just better overall.
Stakes were more personal in his game too,
Totally.
which helped a lot.
So I would probably go like the first game was like an 87, Miles is like an 88. It's just a little bit better for me. This game, I would put at like an even 80. Like, definitely my least favorite of the trilogy. My 2-sentence, maybe 3-sentence review. A safe, if rushed sequel, Spider-Man 2 is an entertaining glimpse into a rich world we fell in love with back in 2018. Swinging around New York has never felt better, and comboing waves of enemies as a superhuman spider guy is as satisfying as you want it to be. However, issues with pacing, writing, lack of new content, and some returning gameplay elements prevent this from being the sequel we deserve, and it's hard not to wonder what this game could have been had Insomniac set out to innovate the way they did the first time around. 8 out of 10. 80 out of 100. So that's where I'm at. Chris?
Let's see. I decided to write mine like a J. Jonah Jameson headline.
Let's go!
Just for shits and giggles. So let's see if I can do this correctly. And if I screw this up, edit the first one out so I sound smarter.
Okay.
The superior Spider-Man experience with a satisfying story and superior symbiote segments. Top tier technological triumph, 91 out of 100.
Wonderful.
You know how I feel about alliteration. Podcast over. This has been. All right, Drew, we're going to start with you, man. Pick something good on the goob scale here. We're starting with good. Something you want to dive into.
Scale!
All right.
Love the scale.
Goob for my goobers.
Gotta be the first one on the list. It's gotta be the web wings.
Oh, yeah.
It's insane. Out of all the things traversal wise that they decided to either again lock behind skill points, skill tree, or just not include, the fact that this one was just available right from the beginning was incredible and a very good idea. But that just made traversal so much more fun, so much more varied, a lot easier in certain spots, especially the new districts where you don't have as many skyscrapers. And then including the little wind tunnels. It's just you're coming close to the ground and you see when you veer off the last second, then you just rocket forward. So good. So good.
Man, the traversal upgrades in this game, like this was to me really truly the one aspect from the previous games that they fully upgraded. It was like this was a meaningful improvement.
There's no debate about the traversal being 100% better. Everything else you can debate. This one is 100%. There's no question.
Man, when you fully level up all of your swinging abilities and you're just like at max speed and you're just zipping through the city and then you combo it into a dive, hit a air tunnel, fly up. I mean, it's just so, physics be damned. I don't care. Iron Man, Superman, whatever the fuck. It's fun. The web wings are fun. And as much as I love zipping around the city, and I rarely fast traveled in either game, like very rarely, like this makes things a little quicker. And so maybe some people say, oh, you miss some of the, you're just moving through the world so fast. You're like the things you're missing. And I'm like, what are you missing? Some people are complaining that like because of the web wings and how fast you move through the world, they weren't on their feet very often, and they never interacted with civilians. And I'm like, the only reason I interacted with a civilian in the first game was to get the trophy.
Yes.
Exactly.
You know what I mean? I don't want to interact with civilians. I want to fly.
Yeah, no, that's a really flaccid take from the internet.
Yes,
Oh, I'm not on my
stupid.
feet so much. I'm having such a good fucking time with the way you do Spider-Man things in a Spider-Man game that I'm not getting to be a normal walk around person. What a stupid take.
We'll get to all the normal walk around person parts later.
Oh, yes, we will.
Later, much later.
Yeah. That is on the second O on my Google.
I love riding bikes. That's all I can say.
Dude, but the haptics were just amazing, Drew. You can almost feel the chain of the bike click.
Related to the web swinging, I wanted to ask you guys if you played with the web swing assistance on and if you played with fall damage on.
Oh, man.
Whatever it was defaulted to, which I think is no fall damage and full web assist, I just played default.
I spent like an hour tweaking the settings. First thing I did when I loaded in was turn fall damage on, and I turned assistance all the way off. The first thing I did. And I was having a hard time swinging around. Like, you have to really be aware of like which way you face your camera before you launch the next web. I mean, it's very forgiving, depending on, if you have it all the way up, depending on which direction you're facing. It's very forgiving with keeping your forward momentum and which buildings that you are attaching your web to. And it will break the physics to keep you on the trajectory you're swinging, which is a very welcome thing. So turning the web assist off, the increased difficulty wasn't worth the trade-off to me, because it wasn't like, oh, this is so much more skill-based than before. It was, I mean, technically yes, but it just didn't feel very fluid. It wasn't very fun. I played with fall damage for a little bit. I was like, I don't need that level of immersion in a game where I am like comboing guys in the air for 5 straight minutes. Like, I just don't need that. So I ended up turning it all back on and back up.
Do you settle somewhere in the middle for web assist, or do you just bring it back up to 10?
I brought it back up to 10 after messing with it for like an hour and seeing if there's one that felt better. But I was like, I just full sent. I'm like, dude, I'm Supermaning through Queens right now. Like, who cares? I just want it to feel good and fun. But I like that option's there.
Yeah, didn't touch it at all myself. I want the power fantasy for sure. And I agree with y'all 100% on the overall traversal improvements. I like that you can get faster and be in the air longer. It's again one of those things that feels like a useful and earned skill progression rather than a tree that's like, now you can do a barrel roll in the web wings, which is like, that's dumb. I'm sure that I should have been able to do that already because I'm swinging around New York City and doing flips with webs. But like, yes, the more time that you spend with this new technology, the better you get at like preserving your momentum and able to like catch the wind a little better, the position of the arms, whatever. But I believe it, and that is welcome to be able to go faster. A lot of those really like crappy trophies, frankly, like the talk to 4 citizens. It's like, okay, I get it. You want me to know that I can talk to citizens. Thanks. This is stupid.
I'm glad those were gone for the second one.
Seriously, but the fly from the financial district to Astoria trailer without doing any web swings and without touching the ground was genuinely a ton of fun. And going like, okay, so I can catch this just a little bit. And I thought that I had done it the first time, but I used the boost, and that you can't use the boost. So I was like, oh damn, okay, so I can't use the vertical boost, so I have to like reroute my map and like, okay, I can start from here and chain this wind tunnel and catch that vent and then get over the water and just make it over to the bridge to catch this one and rock it over. Like, that was a lot of fun.
I got that trophy on accident. I didn't look at the trophy list at all before this game. I didn't want to, be spending the whole game trying to get specific things. I just wanted to enjoy it the first run through. So I was just dicking around, seeing how far I could go. And I found a big building, and then I ended up somewhere, and then I popped a trophy, and I was like, oh, there you go.
The trophy list is on my list of good. And the more I think about it, the more maybe now I wish that they had a little bit where I had to kind of go out of my way to think about, because everything in this game was stuff you acquired naturally, pretty much. Mm-hmm. There was maybe 1 or 2 collectible things like Easter eggs. And then, as I'll talk about in the bad, there were some glitched trophies that had me going out of my way for a few hours. But the trophy list, initially my thought was, this is how trophies should be. I will get the platinum trophy if I just play the game to completion. And that is what I want. I do like when a trophy list comes up with some additional challenges. Nothing crazy, nothing like the original, the original Last of Us trophy list where it was like just impossible and there's multiplayer shit. Like I don't want ridiculous crushing shit, but I like when it gives me a little additional challenge. Like Spyro had a really good list. Less tedious, the better. So I won't overthink it. It was less tedious than the first 2 games, and I'm happy with that.
Is that your good?
Yeah, I'll parlay that conversation into my good. You got something good for me?
Generally speaking, this is sort of my thesis statement for the good column overall is Insomniac to this game. Insomniac said, if you like something from the previous games, whether that be a system, a specific method of combat, a way of engaging with the world, we are going to give you more ways to do it, and we are going to give you better ways to do it in this game. Traversal, we already talked about, is a big one with the addition of the web wings and the wind tunnels and the ability to get faster and more economic and stuff like that. I'd like to talk about the combat with regards to that they took a lot of the things that they could tell they were doing well and that people really liked and gave you a bunch more ways to do stuff within them. Aerial combat is so much fucking better than it was in either of the previous games, like substantially better.
So OP too.
Oh, it's so OP, and that's what they want you to do, right? Like in the first game, you've got enemies screaming at you, don't let him get in the air! Like you know that is where you can be Spider-Man in combat. The fact that you can mid-air dodge and not break your combo now is so fucking welcome and can stay locked into the enemy that you're already engaged with. The fact that there are more ways for you to elevate enemies now to get into aerial combat. The fact that you can chain a swing kick into a move that will let you throw them higher into the air so that you can come out of a combo with one guy. And if you don't want to web yank somebody and want to cover a little distance, get away from somebody with a melee weapon, you could swing over, kick them, toss them into the air and just like keep comboing. Yeah, it was great. The different abilities and weapons, the fact that they innovated from the Venom abilities in Miles Morales, that you're pressing L1 to open abilities and R1 to open gadgets, and the fact that they streamlined a lot of the gadgets and removed a ton of useless shit from the first 2 games that were totally redundant with other abilities. I felt so good about knowing what everything was going to do and when I wanted to use things contextually. And they also, like I said, they streamlined stuff. Like each of the ability variations are meaningful in having like 2 sets of abilities. And in the case of Peter, like he's got 2 buttons that have 3 different things you can map to them. They're meaningful without being overwhelming, and they're also straightforward. Like Miles and Peter are both going to be able to push, pull, elevate, and stun enemies with their abilities. And they are a little bit different. They have different damage scales depending on which character's using which of those ability types. But it makes it so that it's a little bit different. But I also don't feel like I'm playing 2 radically different characters because I don't want to. And I don't think that's the way they designed this game to be anyway. Like they want it to be a little more player friendly. A lot of the gadgets that are gone from the first 2 games are gadgets that I literally never used. And the gadgets that they did give me in this game, I used all the goddamn time because they were all useful. That I could push enemies away with the concussion / the sonic blast. I could elevate enemies. I could pull them into one spot, and I could web stuff up. And all the stuff that's gone, like the holo drones, like, okay, yeah, that's fine, I guess, but it kind of just got more junk on the battlefield that wasn't like the most useful. The impact web, I'm not really a web guy. I like that I can web up multiple dudes more than just impact webbing one person. I want to punch stuff, you know what I mean? Like I'm not trying to like stick people to walls. All of the different like electric stun type things, it's redundant now. Both of the characters can stun with abilities. I don't need that. Yeah, just a lot of that stuff. I did not miss it, especially with the web line, which we're definitely gonna talk about the web line. Holy shit. So that's me. But please, yeah, I want to hear what your thoughts on this are.
I was texting Drew last week, and Drew, you had said you didn't use gadgets at all in the first 2 games.
Still didn't.
Crazy.
I still didn't.
That's crazy.
The only gadget I ever used is the Sonic one that you use on the symbiotes, like in the last quarter of the game because,
Oh man,
and I still didn't use them. So I was like, I did like the implementation of it. Just hit R1 and hit your face button. It makes it so you don't have to bring up a wheel and everything. You know, your menus
No
and
futzing
menus.
through menus.
EJ.
Fuck a wheel.
I told Nick when I was at his house last week, I said, I'm still not used to the new combat yet because my brain is so used to what I was doing before. So objectively, I know that the new system where it's a little more of like an MMO where you just have hotkeys, like that is better than having a regular scroll wheel and futzing through menus. So I give it points for that, but I'm just still not used to it yet. And so like I not until the end of the game did I find myself being like, oh, this finally feels like as good as I want it to. As far as the gadgets go, I know there had to be a compromise between doing what they did in the last game, which is bringing up the weapon wheel, which I think people may have had a problem with, and they wanted to streamline things. That's understandable. And, you know, still giving us some of these gadgets and abilities, but they can only give us 4 slots on each button. So we're missing a lot. Impact web, spider drones, electric web, trip mine, web bombs, my beloved suspension matrix. And they kind of replaced some of them. The only gadget to me that I really loved in Spider-Man 2 was the web grabber, where you'd swing it out and it would grab all the enemies in the area and all like the trash and like fuck whatever other elements were in the overworld, and it would smack them, and that was cool. The other 3, pretty bummed about. Impact web was fucking awesome. Being able to just bam somebody onto the side of a building instantly and stick them instantly.
I did like the trip mine from the first one. That was kind of fun.
Trip mine's awesome. And then suspension matrix is just like, that was my jam because it would get a whole group of enemies into the end. You have the upshot now, but like in a game where you have like spider arms and all these other crazy things, like the suspension matrix kept people in the air. Now it's like, okay, well, you get them up with the upshot and then you can choose who you... They're like, let's make this a little less overpowered, but...
Yeah, and they both have abilities, too, to get folks in the air that work well.
Sure, yeah.
I like that as a balance change. I get why you'd miss it, though, because it is really fucking overpowered in the first 2 games. Like, that is a gadget I did use because those fuckers would sit up there at max upgrade, and you could just pick them off. To the point where I was like, I don't want to engage in this fight. I'm just going to cheese it with the suspension matrix. So like, that's valid, but I like the tweak that they made. Impact Web is the only one really that I thought, yeah, I see how this could have added uniqueness. The trip mine's okay, but with the slackline, like, you don't need any other goddamn thing.
Slackline's a really good addition. Before we chat about Slackline, let me just say to you that, Chris, to your point about like, I didn't want the Spider-Men to feel too different from each other. I felt the opposite. Like, I don't want them to be terribly homogenized. Like, they are 2 distinct people with very different power sets. And Peter's the genius who's got the gadgets. And when I switched between them, I wanted to feel like, all right, I am playing Miles now, or I'm playing Peter now, and have that be more integral to how you interact with the world and how that informs their character. But at the end of the day, they're kind of the same character, especially once you get the symbiote.
The arms are the answer to a lot of that, right? That they need to like feel and look different, but I don't want them to play so differently that I'm learning 2 characters. You know what I mean? Like Miles' sort of like cover ground really fast ability, the Venom Dash, like feels way different than the tunnel shot with the spider arms, even though functionally they're filling the same niche, just because they have different after effects for the enemies. Like Venom stunned enemies, you're going to be able to do more things with than you are with just like tunnel arms. But then some of the improvements with the tunnel arms, like that it would automatically like web people up so that you could throw them and that they'd be more susceptible to damage. Like that was distinctly Peter in a way that Miles just like going really fast, throwing a bitch, and then using the second charge to go really fast another direction and throw a bitch, and then getting the Venom clouds to be able to like refill stuff back up. Like they did. I got a distinct flavor from them, but I'm in the minority maybe that I didn't really want them to. I didn't want to feel like I had to relearn each of these characters when I got to a section that I had to play as one of them in the main story. And I'm curious, and I would love to talk about this if we get time, of like what are you looking at in a Spider-Man 3 that is absolutely coming, and some thoughts on what we think will happen systems-wise, narratively, what we hope will happen, and some things that I hope they avoid. because I think that this sort of speaks to part of that. Anywho,
I want to kick us into stories soon, but let's talk about the web lines before we do that, and then we'll keep rolling here. The web lines were great.
oh my god, my favorite thing that they added to this game.
Brilliant
when I
addition.
was doing that first section in Peter snooping through Craven's base, and he's like, "Ooh, I bet I can use this." I thought it was gonna be like a little rope, like one of the like rope traps, like with weights on either end that would wrap people up and drop them or something. And so I was like, "Oh, okay, well that's fine, I guess." And then it was the slack line, and I went, "This is like the greatest fucking thing ever." They said, "We know you love the Spidey stealth. We know you love zipping around, webbing people up, grabbing people. What if you could just literally make a spider web above any arena that you wanted and rope up not only one, but two people at the same time?" God damn. Just literally, I was just giggling like an idiot for like an hour after I got the web line for the first time, running around, building little webs that offshoot from other webs, and the discovery of, oh my god, I can go from like web to wall to make a new web. Like, that's so fucking cool. And I could like angle this one down so I get close enough to these people and then zip back over to that arm. And oh man, that just took something that we have all expressed, that we were like, Spidey stealth was just a joy in every game, and they made it even more joyful and more ways for you to not have to engage in open combat in the sections where they really want you to think about moving with a bit more stealth. I did not get in a single fight in any of the hunter bases.
I will say, where the first game had way too many bases. There were like 4 different kinds of bases.
Yeah.
Because of because of the slackline, I wanted more in this one, and they cut that down so much.
Right.
There wasn't enough.
That's fair.
It's funny because I use stealth very rarely in this game. And even though the web lines were a great addition to the stealth mechanic, it was just always quicker to just go and kill everybody, because they cut down, like, even when you were in a base, there weren't 5 waves of enemies. The encounters were much, much shorter.
I only got 1, maybe 2 double takedowns in my entire playthrough. Like double webbing. There just wasn't the opportunity because there were so few bases.
You got to make the opportunity, brother. Web distracting somebody to get these people over here. And I'm like, all right, if I pick that guy off, this guy's going to find his body and he's going to call somebody else. Like, oh no, I was like double takedowns almost exclusively, manipulating and sometimes dropping down and showing myself as Miles.
Double takedown all the way across the sky.
Immediately cloaking, zipping back up to the line, and then all their positions are scrambled, and now I've got way more double takedown opportunities. So
I don't think I ever cloaked as Miles in either game that he was in. Ever.
Again, rarely used it in this game because it was just more efficient to just fight everybody. And now, Chris, I'm understanding why this took you so much longer to platinum than everybody else. Because you were much more methodical in your combat encounters. I go in, I clear a base, it takes me 45 seconds. Like, I wasn't fucking around.
Because he played Assassin's Creed 10 years ago, and that's what informs his playstyle now.
I feel like it would have taken longer if I'd have gotten into open combat, but
I promise you. What difficulty were you playing on? Were you playing on the hardest?
Standard. Nope, whatever the standard difficulty is. That may have added time, but that was time like really well spent for me. And they're gonna give me this like super fun toy. Like, I'm gonna use the shit out of this.
Yeah.
Did you find this game harder, easier than the first one? Where do you fall on difficulty as far as compared to the others?
Easier for sure. It might be that I'm getting better at how this game plays, and they improved some of the stuff that I was taking cheap deaths from in the first game. But I did not. I think I died like 3 times in this game through my entire playthrough.
Yeah, it's easier for sure. And part of that is probably by design. Part of that is you're a little more OP than you were in the first game, and there wasn't as much of a, as Chris noted before, like the obnoxious, like, why can't I remove weapons from guys' hands until I unlock it in the skill tree? Like, you could do that right off the rip. So there was less of a creep on what you're able to do. Yeah, it's easy. I didn't die very often. There were some of the boss fights that got a little grindy and obnoxious because they would spawn like little trash mobs that would just fuck with you.
There's like 5 different phases.
Yeah.
Just keep going.
Boss fights. I have some boss fights in the good and the okay and the bad, but overall I think the boss fights in this game were pretty tragic compared to the last 2 games. We'll get to that. The only thing about stealth that kept me from using it very often in this game is the enemy AI is completely unchanged in this game from the last two games, and it was already showing its age in 2018. It feels downright unforgivable in this game, like inconsistency with when an enemy was safe to take down or not. Enemies not seeing anything, like nothing below a certain part of their eye line, nothing in their peripherals, like web distractions not working properly. Like if you go too far, it doesn't do anything. If you go too close, they instantly spot you. It would take entire groups of enemies, like 6 people at once, over to where it just like the AI was really rough. And that turned me off from wanting to engage with it at this point. And I was hoping that would have seen a little bit of an overhaul. So even though the stealth is better in this game, they also don't have any segments where they make you do the stealth.
Yeah, they did force that a few times in the first one.
Is that a good or a bad though? Because I feel like there's some in both, right? That there's something to be said for we want you to use this system intentionally, and yeah, like auto fail, like oh you're discovered, we're killing a hostage, like those kinds of things. There's also something to be said for you can choose how you want to do this, and there are pros and cons to each way. I hadn't thought of that. That's really interesting, Drew.
I think it's better giving you the option.
Totally.
Do it however you want. But
again, how they balanced the enemy bases, I mean, engagements were so much shorter than the first two games. I mean, some of those Kingpin bases, just wave after wave after wave. It was like you didn't want to get in a fight.
Yeah.
Right, because you just knew it would take so long. They cut that down so dramatically, which I think is a good thing, but I don't think they struck the balance properly between like when a player is doing that arithmetic of like, all right, is it more economical for me to just do stealth here? Or, you know, to me, the answer was always, well, this is going to be 5 minutes quicker if I just go kill everyone really, really fast. And so the incentive to want to do stealth, that wasn't there the way it was in the first game. Let's dive into the story a little bit. I want to talk about what was really great about this story and its themes, and that is forgiveness, accountability, giving your enemies second chances. And I know it's something we've seen before with Spider-Man, and we saw it most recently in like No Way Home, where he's trying to fix these villains who've come into his universe. And so it's certainly nothing like new, but I love the way they did it and how they threaded that needle between every character that Peter's interacting with. And obviously that reflecting his own journey as he gets the symbiote and sort of goes down this dark path and starts having the friction with his friends, and then seeing the way they have to forgive him when he finally is free of that. But Sandman, in the way Peter's helping Sandman with his daughter, which, that's great. Martin Lee, and we'll dive more on like the Miles Martin side arc and how that becomes anti-venom. That was also really fucking cool. But the Mysterio side quests were awesome and how that resolves. And Quentin Beck getting his second chance. Black Cat and the character development she went through in the DLC of the last game. You know, they set her up of like, don't trust her. You know, MJ is like, you can't trust Black Cat. And then it turns out, hey, we could trust Black Cat and some people can change.
Talk about a fucking cock tease with Doctor Strange, though. My God.
I like that. Just a little.
Yes, same with the Into the Spider-Verse. Just a little bit of this is a bigger world. The note from Wong made me chuckle.
Yeah.
I think that there's room to see these people moving through New York, though, in the way that they did a lot of the like ally encounters when you're just swinging around the world doing a radiant crime, and then like Wraith drops in, or Harry drops in, or Miles / Peter drops in. That I would love to and think in Spider-Man 3 it'll be like, oh, there's Black Cat popping in for a second. Maybe, oh, there's Doctor Strange popping in for a second. There's Wolverine popping in for a second, because we know that's going full steam into development. We got that sick suit, that sick Wolverine suit for Miles.
Drew, what about as far as the story goes, or maybe it was a character or a specific arc? What did you like overall? What was your biggest takeaway in that regard?
I like you already brought up the fact that they were able to weave that same forgiveness narrative so like completely through every character. Like everyone was dealing with that in some aspect or another. Peter, MJ, Miles, Harry, everyone, with Black Cat, with Martin Lee. It didn't feel forced or cheesy. It felt more personal stakes for everyone, which was nice. You're dealing with this, what turns out to be this giant New York, if not entire world-ending event, and everyone's just dealing with their own personal bullshit, which is, nice to see.
The world is ending as this alien is literally like taking over the minds and bodies of everybody in the city. And Peter and MJ are like, "You never make time to have dinner with me." Like, okay,
that was a little weird. To be fair,
No. That is such a bad faith way of framing that. EJ,
It's not.
You're welcome to your opinion, but superhero stuff always works best when the global, cosmic, citywide level conflict that they're dealing with as the superhero is reflected and manifested in their interpersonal conflicts.
You've got the mashed potatoes everywhere, Peter.
And this game, I thought, did that well, including, the way that they were like, you know what? This is a video game. We could give you a bunch of dialogue that auto plays while you're swinging through the city, and they did somewhat. We could give you a cutscene that you could just sit down and watch, where we can write or overwrite a lot of the ways that these resolve, or we could find a way to literally manifest it in the gameplay. We're gonna put Scream in the game, which I fucking loved and made me
I didn't
gasp.
see it coming, that's for sure.
I didn't either. And I was like, oh, yes, I love this. I love that we're getting more symbiote stuff, because that was always my favorite fucking thing as a kid. And having like the red cart Spider-Man Maximum Carnage, which is such a piece of shit game, as we've talked about, but like all the different symbiotes and their differences, and like, oh, they're Scream and they're going to literally fight. And it gives a place for like MJ's worser thoughts and self to come out, and for Pete to be like, hey, I have to face this and I have to fight literally and metaphorically to do this. They also did this really well throughout the course of the game, where they were like, everything is playable, aka fuck your cutscenes. That we could have had a cutscene of Harry and Peter walking through the school, shooting baskets and reminiscing about old times, but instead they literally let us shoot baskets by moving the controller and pressing a button. They let us play through that flashback. Instead of giving us a 10-minute Coney Island cutscene, they programmed like 15 midway games and rides for you to go on, which is so extra. Like, that's what they spent these 3 years doing since Miles Morales is going, how can we make all of this some video game shit instead of doing cutscenes? We want you to play it. We want you to feel it. That's the cool thing about Spider-Man, is how grounded he is. There's that word again. As far as like heroes go, is that he is a friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. And they gave us so many instances of that. And I fuck with that as a design philosophy. And so for me, it worked. The conflicts.
The one thread that I put through some of my O's and even the B on our goob scale here is that there was just
I love it. It's mine now too. I love it.
It's canon.
Fact.
All right. Constant Crusade Deep Lore, the goob scale. There were a lot of interesting themes that they touched on, and when the conflict sort of came to a peak with some of these characters, like you mentioned, MJ becoming Scream and her and Peter screaming at each other during their boss fight. I wish I had a little bit more of a setup pre-symbiote, or things like when we do the retread of the Martin Lee fight and Miles is in the dream sequence and he's seeing all of his insecurities about like his friends leaving him or whatever, and it's like, all right, this feels a little manufactured conflict, because we haven't really seen enough in the real world of like him working through some of those insecurities or events that would make you think like, oh, okay, MJ and Peter are really on the rocks here. Like, if you really wanted to explore that, let's introduce some conflict into the relationship that
That's
the
fair.
symbiote exacerbates, not creates.
There were times where it seemed like it kind of came out of nowhere.
Scream. When we get to the boss fights, I'll talk about Scream. I don't want to get too negative too soon.
This is one of my bigger O/B items on our goob scale.
The goob scale.
It's here, baby. It's not going anywhere. This is new.
Let's goob.
Let's goob. I need this on a sticker.
Everywhere. I just spat my water everywhere.
Somebody give me a goddamn sticker sheet for Christmas with all of the deep lore. Anyway, this is getting a little bit ahead. This is one of my, I don't want to say bigger, but kind of bigger things. Insomniac across all three games has done one thing, has made a clear commitment to something in terms of what they are and are not going to explicitly spool out in story that I think is weak. And I think that it is worst in this game. They rely on existing spider knowledge to do a lot of narrative heavy lifting. And they have done this in all 3 games. That the Peter Otto relationship was super, like, objectively speaking, just in terms of what they put into the game is fucking half-baked. But because they are counting on everybody already knowing the history of Otto Octavius as Dr. Octopus and the relationship that Peter does and does not have with him in different versions of the character. And I saw that a lot in this game, especially with the relationship with Harry, that they are relying on us knowing that relationship history. They're relying on us knowing the Peter and MJ relationship history. In the first game, they do not give us any real conflict between Peter and MJ other than, well, it didn't really work because Spider-Man and because career. That's really all they gave us in the first game. And in this game, they didn't really give us much in terms of why are they on the rocks now. It seemed like they were doing really good, y'all, at the beginning of the game. Like, seemed like they were doing really good. And no, MJ doesn't want to move in because she wants to be in the city for her job, which is completely reasonable and not related to relationship conflict. They do this a lot. They do it a lot. And I'm willing to hand wave it because I do have a reasonable amount of spider knowledge. I'm not deep in the comic sauce. But I know a fair amount about Spider-Man. And I'm just like, okay, great. And until I step back, I don't see that. But it is a gripe that I have, and I think that speaks to a lot of the stuff in this game that we felt like didn't get developed all the way we want. Like Kraven, especially. I know we're going to talk about Kraven. They really relied on us knowing Kraven and the threat of Kraven, and did some fairly inexcusable narrative tropes, which we'll talk
Kraven's
about later.
bad.
Yeah, we will for sure talk about Kraven. So anyway, that's a big one for me. Since we were touching on it anyway, I was like, let me just talk about this now, that they abuse the thought that we're all going to have spider knowledge already to do a lot of narrative work that they should do themselves in the writing.
There are a lot of instances, both mechanically and narratively, where I think this game feels very rushed, especially for a game that takes you 21 hours to platinum. That's insane. That is an insanely short game. Chris, you said it. I put the Harry and Peter's relationship in the okay because that ties more into, like, I think making Harry Venom is a very good choice narratively, even though if I have some issues with like how it was executed and sort of how they teased that out. But
Yes.
but in a vacuum, that is a really good choice. They should have built up Peter and Harry more intentionally, especially Harry as Agent Venom, which is fucking sick. I love that. But it happened for 15 minutes, and then we were on to the next story beat. You know, the flashbacks were a nice insight. I really like the use of flashbacks in this game, and I wish we had more. But it just felt like, all right, Harry's back, and he has a super lab and a collider, and it was like, how long has he been back? What's he been doing? He just gets dumped on the doorstep. And so for me, I never trusted him, even though in retrospect, he was never malicious or like he was the good guy until the symbiote. I never trusted him this whole time because they didn't put in the legwork to make me know or care about this guy. Yeah. So I agree, Chris. There's definitely some things where they could have spent more time with it and more intentionally. I want to be positive.
Yeah, more good.
We have this side plot. Martin Lee escapes, and Miles develops what I think is a little too sudden thirst for revenge. I think that's a different conversation about Miles' place in the story. But once we're on that path, Martin Lee has escaped, and they cross paths, and using Lee's, not exactly redemption, and I think Mr. Negative, Martin Lee, was an awesome character in the first game. I love the way that we saw the duality of, like, you understood why he was on this crusade because of his parents dying, because of what Norman did to him, and like you understood, but he was still this like psychopath, and he had this this dichotomy between what he was doing with Feast and what he was doing as Mr. Negative. So he's not exactly redeemed, but he had a moment. What's that bit in Deadpool where Colossus is like, every hero, there's only 4 or 5 moments in a hero's life where you choose to be the hero, whatever. That's what I thought. It was like Martin Lee chose to do the right thing, and how they spun that into Anti-Venom, which I was not expecting, was so fucking cool. That was like the first story beat that really blew me away. The moment where Miles says, he's like, I can't forgive you, but I have to move past this.
Yes!
Yeah, I thought it was really, really well earned too. Like they kind of built that. I mean, you can say the initial wanting revenge came out of nowhere, but throughout the game, you know, with the different interactions, him really wanting to go after him, and kind of having to team up for a little bit. I think that moment was really well earned, which made it hit that much harder.
And for the record, I think that it makes Miles' place with Lee and the way he responds to Lee makes perfect sense to me. And we talked about this over text, EJ, that we don't hear him talk about Lee and Miles Morales because he's in the fucking raft for the rest of his life and it doesn't matter. Like, it's over. It's done.
Yeah, he's seeing him in person for the first time in 2 years,
and literally comes face to face with it in a moment where his worser instincts win over for a second. That's like,
he's gonna let him die.
And then he's like, no, I can't fucking do that. And he starts to take it up. But of course, Martin's underwater, so he doesn't know that Miles is like, no, this is wrong. I shouldn't do this. But it literally stares him in the face, and he makes a perfectly reasonable 17-year-old choice. All this stuff comes up hard and fast. And then the way that it spools out, of course, we'll talk about later. But it made a lot of sense to me. And they're giving us, I love that they're giving us like origin story, the parts of origin stories that are really interesting, which is the way that they grow into the heroes that they are without giving us an origin story. Like, neither of these games have been origin stories. Even Miles Morales wasn't really an origin story because he's already been training with Peter, but they're really huge formative moments, even for Pete, when he's facing down like the death of Aunt May and Octavius betraying him. I mean, these are a lot of the beats you see in those, but yeah, I thought that was nice. Just to put that on the table.
The emotional impact of Miles and Lee resolving that arc, turning it into Anti-Venom, making Peter the only person who can stop the symbiote now, and having the history now between Peter and Harry, the interplay between all of these little plots and themes, that was a really nice way of doing that. In the comics, Anti-Venom, I think Eddie Brock has cancer and he's exposed to Mr. Negative, like heals him of his cancer, but then it turns the symbiote into this, like, he gets the negative powers, and then Venom goes on one of his many crusades to be a good guy throughout the years. So turning Peter into Anti-Venom, it was both a good answer to, well, what happens once you lose the symbiote? We're just going to strip players of these fucking great powers that they grinded a skill tree for. So now you get to keep those powers, but narratively it makes total sense. So
I think that's something that belongs in one of the later letters on the Goob scale is the overall like Miles and Lee plot thread, how that develops in a way that like meaningfully drives story forward. We could talk about that later because I think we all share some gripes there. But just generally speaking, as I've like looked back on this game in the 2 days since I finished it, and 3 days since I finished it on Thursday. I was like, yeah, I see some issues with like Miles feeling like he's not a true like co-protagonist in this game. Like this very much in the construction of the story is Peter's story, just intrinsically, right? Harry's Venom, the Harry MJ Peter dynamic is the engine that drives this through a lot of the game. This feels like a middle entry in a trilogy. Miles Morales, I don't consider like a full entry in terms of like a numbered entry because it's an expandalone. It is an expansion. It's a side story to develop Miles so that we can get him more time. But this whole game felt like a baton pass to move us into something different and to give us a clean slate with a lot of the existing Spider baggage and characters and villains so that we can have Miles as the protagonist of the third game.
That I fully disagree with.
And I think they did a really nice job of resolving all of the Peter-related threads, having Miles' presence in those arcs be really meaningful as the person who saves him from the symbiote and gets him into the path of redemption, the person who literally goes inside his mind to help him become the antidote to this problem, literally and metaphorically, as the anti-venom. This was a Peter story that Miles was in service of, and now they have left us in a place where Peter can just be Peter for a little while, which made me really emotional at the end of this game. And I don't know how long it'll last. Obviously, we have DLC coming, and I expect we will be playing as Peter for good reason because we've got Carnage coming in DLC, and we need the anti-venom for that, for sure. but that I expect we would start Spider-Man 3 with Pete just getting to be Pete. And I love that.
Out of retirement for some reason.
Yeah, and I hope not. And we could talk about that more later, but we got, of course, in the post-credit scene, the tease that Cindy Moon is here and Silk. And so I'm like, okay, so we've got 3 Spider people now. I think that we'll have another 2 protagonist game, and I hope that Peter is not one of them, to be totally honest. And I think they've set us up with Green Goblin in a great exercise of restraint of not giving us Green Goblin too soon, because he is the greatest spider enemy, period. He is the guy, and that will cap our trilogy. It makes perfect sense. I think they've set the table well, as a middle entry should do, for a conclusion that will satisfy the whole arc of what they've been doing here. Whether or not they stick the landing, of course, is entirely up for debate, and there are some things that they may or may not do in the third one that will make me really frustrated. If they chose to do them or not do them, as the case may be. But I am satisfied as a player and as a viewer in where they have left these people after 2 full outings, and think that they have set the table well for a satisfying and meaningful conclusion.
First, the response to Miles and his connection to the story, or how little of a connection to the story he really had. It really was, this is Peter's story. It's Harry and MJ. Miles was basically just sort of being put off by Peter doing some random side content, literally being the sidekick and being put to the side for most of the story, sort of until the very end. Like, he talks to Harry once in this game on a phone call. Like, he is so removed from what's actually happening. And I don't think they did enough. Because to me, you should have been able to do a proper A-B plot, and they could have done 10 more hours just with Miles while Peter was doing his thing and flip back and forth. What I think, as far as what they're setting up, Peter's story is not over. That baton pass, I mean, he even says, like, do your thing for a while. You know what that says to me? This is not Spider-Man no more. This is not Spider-Man 2. This is not him putting his suit in the trash can. This is a grown-up Spider-Man saying, hey, like, we're good right now. I'm going to do my thing for a while, and we're good. You know what that means to me? It means we're going to get a Miles Morales too, and you're going to get a Silk introduction, because Cindy Moon is not a spider person yet. At least I hope not. Like, I want to see that origin play out, and I'm so glad it's Silk and not Spider-Gwen. Like, that's so fucking cool. Like, we're going deep cut on the Spider-Woman. Like, that's badass. So we're going to get a Miles Morales too. That's, to me, what should be the play, where we really get another 20-hour experience where it's Miles being Miles and he's got his own threat. Hopefully somebody that he doesn't know intimately, like every other fucking villain in this universe. And then Spider-Man 3 is going to be the resolution, hopefully, to Peter's story, which is not over. Because, I mean, Harry is in a coma. We got mentioned the G serum. We're going to get Goblin. So whether the next game ends with his death or him walking away as Spider-Man or whatever it is, this to me was setting up a little break from Peter, a good reason to do a more focused story with Miles, and then they can come back to this in 5 or 6 years.
I can totally see that, and I would be happy with it. There's a point at the end of the game where you, in a brilliant twist, get to be Control Venom as he goes on his rampage. Cool. During that moment, I was like, are we getting a Venom-style Miles Morales game after this? But then, obviously, based on the end of the game, no, we're not. Unless they leave threads for that in whatever DLC they put Carnage into.
It wasn't the emotional send-off that I don't even know if they wanted it to be. You know, I know Peter's experienced this tragedy, but, like, it wasn't just the barrage of, like to me, it's like Spider-Man 3. Harry and MJ gotta die. Like, Peter Parker needs to experience some serious trauma, not his elderly aunt. Let's do the Gwen Stacy thing with MJ, you know, in The Goblin, and, like, really make this the absolute pinnacle of, like, the most personal, devastating thing, if that's where you're gonna go. Because so far, it doesn't feel earned enough.
More of a let Peter be Peter with MJ for a while, and then he'll put the suit back on. Like, let him
what's gonna happen.
Peter for a little while.
Yeah.
They could do that, but I don't think that's what they're trying to do based on what I got from this game. It felt like Peter's trying to get out of the game, and that they are trying to, for a million purely money-making and interconnected to broader media situation reasons, trying to make Miles the main character. And I felt like there was a very real world in which, like, Peter died in this game. They didn't obviously go that way, and I was plenty emotional at him getting to, like, tell Miles Like Miles getting to say, it's okay, I've got this. Like, you don't have to do this. And maybe that's for a while, and maybe that's for never. I don't think it'll be never, but I still think there's a really real world where the trauma that we get at the beginning of the third game is not Peter's trauma, but it's Miles, and that the Goblin kills Peter. And whether that's because Peter puts the suit back on because Goblin's hunting him and he gets taken out, and then he's got to fly solo with no mentor, depending on if we get Silk in like an expand-alone type thing alongside Miles, it feels like those are the characters that we're going to be playing as, who are certainly going to be distinct enough from one another, just given their own relative like ability sets in the comic books. I don't know. It just, that is what it felt like they were trying to do, is have Miles become the primary Spider-Man. I could totally see a Miles Morales too, but that would not make a lot of sense to me with the way that they constructed this game and the narrative threads that they were weaving with both of those characters.
I just feel like if you have a Spider-Man 3 without Peter Parker Spider-Man, you're going to piss off a lot of people.
2 points to that. One, this is not Naughty Dog. Insomniac is a very safe studio. Okay? They played this sequel too safe. Too safe, I think. And they're going to continue
Osborn
that.
with a golf club. Oh, my God.
For real. So, and I think the wording at that last scene was very intentional. The big threat is over. Miles can go back to being the friendly neighborhood Spider-Man. Peter gets to do his startup and do his thing for a while. They were very intentional in how they set that up. If we get a Spider-Man No More, or a true passing of the baton, it cannot be a 26-year-old Peter Parker saying, I'm done being a superhero. That goes in the face of, with great power comes great responsibility. He will have to die if that's what they choose to do. I don't know if they have the balls to do that. You listen to Brian Innerhar, the creative director, doing all the PR rounds this week, doing deep dives with IGN and Kind of Funny and all these other guys. Peter's story is definitely not over. Goblin was teased for a reason. Spider-Man 3 could be the end of his story, wrapping up the trilogy, but his story is not over. So I look forward to what they do. I would love an expand-alone. If I only have to wait 2 years for more Spider-Man, that's too long. You know what I mean? I definitely couldn't wait 5 or 6 more years for another Spider-Man. And I hope they don't do Silk the way they did Miles. I want her story to feel unique. Whether she is Spider-Man or Spider-Woman yet or not, I don't know. I don't want the beats to play out the same way Peter and Miles has. You know, like they can do something a little more creative to give us the 2 Spider-Person formula.
I don't want either of those games before I get my fucking Wolverine game.
Oh, I'm not looking forward to that game.
I do not. Because that's one where they could give me a little bit more like an adult tone if they, like you said, they're not Naughty Dog, which that's a great line. I want Wolverine. I would much rather have that game first.
I do like the idea, now that you brought it up, of Miles Morales 2, with Miles and Silk. And then, they're going to do it in a Spider-Man 3. In Spider-Man 2, you had 2 Spider-Men. Spider-Man 3, you got 3 Spider-Men.
No, it's too many. It's too many spider people unless you're going to give me completely different games.
It's too many.
No.
Maybe Silk doesn't even come to fruition until maybe that's a Spider-Man 3 post-game thing, and that was just like a fun little Easter egg. Like, there's a reason we didn't see her face. Like, they didn't set her up the way they set up Miles in the first game. You know what I mean? Like, you got to play as Miles.
Instead of a Miles Morales 2, we'll get a little mini Silk game. Like, of her backstory up until she got to New York.
I fuck with that. I'd play that.
Maybe we'll see more in the DLC. Insomniac has shown that, like, what happens in the DLC is very canon. They are not ignoring it.
I mean, in Silk's canon, she got bit by the same spider that bit Peter. So they've had their powers for the same amount of time. She's just been off somewhere else learning and the skill. So
right,
if they stick with that canon, by the time she gets to New York, she's had spider powers just as long as Peter.
That also leads to some weird shit with, like, she got bit by the same spider, so she shows up, and then her and Peter have this like weird like love thing because they were bit by the same spider. They have this irresistible, like, it's like really weird, and I don't think we're gonna go down that path. But yeah, I don't know. There might be a lot of explaining to do if that's what they decide to do. But the possibilities are there. And as many baddies as we've seen, like, there's still plenty to choose from, not least of which obviously being Goblin. And I love the slow play. We know Norman He's not some evil bad guy. Like, he's kind of an asshole.
Some modern day billionaire.
Totally.
He's not like overtly evil, but he's kind of evil.
He's just a dick, and you kind of get why he's a dick to Otto, because Otto is like the same level of fucking dick to Norman. But then you see the stuff with Martin Lee, and you kind of understand why Norman was doing what he was doing. But he's not an evil person. He's just maybe a little loose with his morals, but in service of something greater, which is always like a good way to build a villain. Like, he's not just evil guy. He's not like fucking Craven, you know. Drew, give me something off of the G's. You got anything else you want to touch on that you really liked about this game?
The progression as far as skill trees go.
Yeah.
We got more skill trees in the first game. Not only are there shared skill tree between Miles and Peter, but also a Peter and a Miles skill tree. But now instead of suit mods, you have a new skill tree for each traversal, damage, health, and venom powers, I think, right?
I can see it's the third one down, and I cannot remember what it is. Gadgets? Stealth?
I don't know. Finding information on Google is impossible. It's just a bunch of shitty IGN articles.
I like that they mixed it up, and it's not get a suit, get an ability that comes with the suit. In the first one, then you could mix and match, which was fantastic.
Thank God.
I like that they didn't do that again. Just for the fact that apparently EJ doesn't like when they bring back things that would come back. They'd have to come up with a bunch of brand new suit abilities.
No. I don't like, and this is definitely on the bad for me, I don't like unlocking a huge majority of shit I've already unlocked. Traversal abilities, suits, some of the gadgets, some of the skill tree stuff. Over 60% of the things you unlock in this game are things I already unlocked. Identically. That frustrates me.
You shouldn't have to unlock any traversal stuff. Like,
no!
You already know that. But like, that's also probably another reason they gave Peter the spider arms. It's an excuse to make him learn stuff that he didn't have access to before because he didn't have spider arms. But like, what are you going to give him all the abilities from the last game plus a whole new set of stuff? That's too many buttons. You got to gate stuff again behind progression.
But even the suits, like, and this is something you would complain about, Drew, about how like a lot of the new suits are not really that new. But other than like story related suits, which there was like 3 or 4, the majority of brand new suits are all DLC unlockables. Gated behind a paywall. There's like 12 or however many suits what you get from the DLC. That's
10, 5 for each.
Is it 5 for each? Okay.
I do think they saved that a lot with the whatever they call them, the suit styles or whatever, where each, not all of the suits, but the vast majority have 4 distinct color palettes, which sometimes can point to another suit where it's not necessarily that specific suit, but it's the color scheme of this other suit that we don't have in the game. So that kind of saves it. And Chris was talking earlier where it saves some terribly designed, ugly, gross suits that have one saving color scheme. It's like, okay, this is worth it now.
Totally. Yeah, that's in my good column, since we're talking about it anyways. The suits that they added in this game and the colorways they added for the existing suits are fucking tight. They are awesome. There are some really great suits in this game. And I don't mind revisiting old suits, especially when almost all of the time, unless they're like really iconic, like the Spider-Man webbed suit, the ribbed suit, the Maguire suit, the Garfield suit, the Holland suit, those are always going to look exactly the same, and they're always going to be options because money.
I don't want to spend resources, hard-earned in-game resources, unlocking things I've already unlocked. I should have had all my old suits.
You can get everything in the game by doing each of the quests with no additional labor, so why is it a problem? Because if you're a platinum trophy guy, you're going to have all those things anyway. It's not really slowing you down. And again, they're great. The suits are fucking awesome. Though the Black Panther Miles suit with the different colorways, like the purple colorways, fucking awesome. So cool. The Wolverine suit, amazing. The different Miles symbiotes, like the Absolute Carnage suit, the King in Black suit, the Creature of the Night, I don't think that's the right name, suit. Like, those are fucking sick. The Superior Spider-Man suit. The Mysterio suit, the Wraith suit.
It looks like the white one looks like freaking White Ranger.
It does.
Yeah.
It literally looks like the White Power Ranger.
Good.
It's so fucking tight. I want to hear about default suits, by the way, really quick as an aside here from both of y'all. I ran with Miles almost the entire game, the Bodega Cat suit with the green colorway, because having Spider Cat behind me and assisting with takedowns, which is the greatest fucking thing ever. The cat hops out of the back. It's like, meow, and like smacks people when you're doing a takedown, was everything I ever wanted from cat related content in a video game. For a long, long time, I did that one. And then I switched to the Wolverine suit with the yellow jacket, blue colorway with the stripes cutting in on the sides of the jacket. Fucking awesome. And for Pete, it was the new symbiote suit, as long as he had that suit, because I loved how gross and disgusting that got over time. It felt like icky in the best way. And when I was out of symbiote, I switched to the Superior Spider-Man suit with the white and neon green colorway. That is pure sex. So I loved the new suits. Loved the new suits. And I did not mind unlocking them.
Yeah, the suits that they put in here were great. It'd be awesome to have all of the other ones, which with DLC, I'm sure they will put them in as well as some new ones, because they were adding new suits to the first game up until like a year ago.
Miles Morales. Yeah.
Up until No Way Home and Miles Morales came out.
Oh, right. Yeah, with the remaster.
So we'll be getting new suits for a while.
Drew, what were you rocking for most of the time?
I am a sucker for like a white Spider-Man suit. So
yeah.
I loved the anti-venom suit. As soon as I got that, I was like, this is all I'm wearing as Peter. But up until then, he had a really good, I don't know the names of any of these things. I liked the white and lime green one. I hate the Spider-Punk.
No!
I hated it in the first one. Hated it in this.
Same.
Even in the white colorway? Oh,
I'd have to look at it again, but I don't know. I don't know why. That one just, I don't like it. But for Miles, the track suit is great with the white main body and the black on the top. But yeah, the black and white suits I'm a sucker for. So I was switching between a lot of those back and forth. The Mysterio, the white Mysterio for Miles was a favorite. The like Craven Hunter suit that looks exactly the same on both of them. Like they have the exact same colorways. The white one looked really good. For a while, I just was like, I don't want to switch back and forth between them, so I'll put them both in this suit so I can trick my brain into thinking I'm just being one Spider-Man.
So you didn't mind? That was a question I had, is like, did you feel like you had to make them look distinct? Because I definitely did. That if any of the Miles suits felt like they looked too much like a traditional Peter suit, I didn't want to use them at all.
I wanted them to match. I wanted them to be like a team. So like if one was in black and gold, the other was in black and gold. Or if one was mostly white, the other was mostly white. I don't know.
Nice.
I joked with you guys when we were texting about all this. I said I'm a suit slut. I got different suits for different times of day. Indoors versus outdoors, suits for bosses, suits for side quests. I gotta coordinate. I mean, a lot of time I was rocking my streetwear shit with the Miles sportswear and the fucking Scarlet Spider. Like to me, that those worked well together. Like I did a lot of classic suit early on. Scarlet Spider, obviously. When I unlocked the classic black suit, fucking finally with the purple, with slight purple shader. Oh, yes. Dude, come on.
Oh, Miles' last suit. Feelings on that.
It's awful. It's fucking terrible.
Which one was his
the
last
evolved
one?
suit
with the blue and the like Nike tennis shoes? Last suit he unlocked.
It was all right.
Apparently,
the internet
I didn't
love it.
It's just like, this is the worst thing that's ever been designed in human history.
It's terrible for a lot of reasons. Okay, the one cool thing is the mask with the hair. That's fucking awesome.
That was tight. Yeah, it did not get me hard. I was like, this is okay, and I don't love that I am required to wear this for narrative purposes. That's the only reason it rubbed me the wrong way.
I don't like a suit where you're just wearing shoes. Like, that doesn't do anything for me.
I kind of like it. It's got a little like the athletic vibe. He's got the Adidas on. It's got the hood. Like, it's definitely feels very Miles. But the electric blue with the big stripe, like, I don't think Insomniac, whoever they got in the art department, they are not very good at designing suits. I think the PlayStation, like the classic Insomniac suit with the white gloves and shit, is largely pretty terrible. Like they're trying really hard to do something new and different that it's just crappy fanfic garbage to me.
I thought the first game and second game, Peter suits were great. I don't know that we needed both of them in this game, especially one as an unlock in the few suits that we get to unlock. But they were different enough as opposed to the Miles suits, which was just a slightly darker black. That annoyed me.
Very minimally updated. I don't mind. It's not a retread to have all the old suits in here, but it's annoying that I'm A, unlocking the old suits, and then B, they're going to sell DLC to me in 6 months that has a bunch of the old suits, and they're going to advertise it as like being an exciting new thing. I'm like, that was in the first game. I paid for that already.
Oh, that's just a throw in for the narrative parts of the DLC. I don't really see that as like, if they try to sell me a suit pack that I can only get certain suits, then I will be like, fuck you, absolutely not. But if I buy the Let There Be Carnage DLC and they throw in some of the old suits as a treat, I'm going to be playing that anyway. I don't mind that as a pack-in.
Oh, we didn't include these because we had to save something for the DLC. And to me, a lot of what I didn't like about this game, it felt like a product of Insomniac not having time to really dive into making a game that stood up to what the first game did in 2018. And even though it's a pretty lateral move to me, it's like, yeah, this was a safe sequel. It's a good game. The base formula is very fun. There's so many elements that make it seem like they didn't have the time or they weren't trying very hard, or they're excluding things. And then you start getting into like the you want to get Chris on an anti-capitalist rant about how they're dishing content out to us or what they include and don't include, and for $70, I'm frustrated that this game was 3 hours longer than Miles Morales. It really really bothered me.
I think they heard the feedback from the first Spider-Man game, which had way too much repetition in the side stuff. Like we mentioned earlier, there's 27 different bases to clear out. All that.
Yeah.
Every district you have to do like 10 random crimes of each different set, Sable crimes, escape prisoner crime. So I think they dialed it back way too far.
The side content in this game is better paced than the last two games.
It's better paced. It's more diverse. You're doing more different things. You're not doing as much of each thing, which helps it stay fresher. They cut back too much to where that was a good chunk of the padding of the first game that helped it get to that 35-hour mark was all the side stuff. So I think if they would have put in just a bit more, they could have gotten 5 extra hours out of it, and people wouldn't be complaining so much about the runtime of the game.
And Brian Innerhar has been very public this week about like, I don't care how long the game is. He said this about Spider-Man 2 or Miles Morales. He said, to me, that is Spider-Man 2. I don't care about the length. That is such a great, concise story. That is a standalone entry in this universe. That is Spider-Man 2 to him. And I agree. And he says, I don't care if this game is too short. It's about quality over quantity. And I'm like,
it told the story that they wanted to tell. They just didn't. But I'm paying money for it and I'm playing it.
Right. And when you look at all the things that felt rushed about the game, both technically and narratively, it's like, yeah, that argument would hold up if it were a super concise, like Last of Us, like 12 hours or 15 hours, right? You're like, yeah, that holds up. But it's not that. It is good, but it is well below what I would consider, like when you look at Sony's pantheon of amazing narrative-driven games. This is not a God of War. This is not a Last of Us. And so to say like, oh, quality over quantity, like, yeah, but you're giving us like an okay game with some really amazing gameplay elements, and then it's 20 hours long, and it just feels like it kind of a slap in the face.
I did notice that they didn't have any point in this game where you're swinging around and Spider-Man goes, well, I guess I better just wait around for random stuff to happen before the story can progress. They didn't do that once, and I was so happy. Just let me get to the next thing.
He did do it twice.
It happens a few
once
times.
when you got the symbiote off, and he's like, "I've been neglecting the city for too long," but it was way fewer.
Okay.
It was way fewer. Drew.
It was like every 2 checkpoints in the first game. It's annoying.
Yeah, because I'm clearing every side content available before I do the mission. So all of those where I was kind of like, oh, good. I get to swing around for 5 fucking minutes until a useless ass Radiant crime pops up with a bugged bonus objective. Every fucking one of those bonus objectives in Spider-Man 1 and Miles Morales was bugged for me, that as soon as I initiated the encounter, they were already green checked, and nothing that I could do in the course of the side mission would actually let me complete them. This happened consistently through both of those games, and it never happened in this one. Just as a totally side rant of something I really fucking hated about the first 2 games, listen, the side quests in this game are fucking fantastic. They are so much more varied, interesting, well-paced, integrated into the story. And I talked about this a little bit when I finished Miles Morales a few weeks ago, and I talked about it on pod, but putting the neighborhood in Friendly Neighborhood Spider-Man is, to me, the single most important thing that every Spider-Man game needs to do. That is what makes him so goddamn endearing and the most recognizable Marvel character, is because of how connected to the people of New York City he feels in a way that Iron Man just doesn't, because he's off fighting Thanos in space or some shit. You know what I mean?
And then Miles Morales even to a next level where it's just literally Harlem, like the literal neighborhood.
Yes. And his block, which again is something you don't hear outside of like New York City or Chicago or even LA to a certain extent, but New York especially is like, this is my block. And the people on Miles' block know that he is Spider-Man and keep that for him because they know what it means to have someone like him representing them. And, you know, things like the Harlem Music Center side quest with this like white producer who feels like he's entitled to the music of these like legendary black artists, and getting able to like walk through a literal museum and see all of these like incredibly iconic jazz musicians who created the game and who came through Harlem. But stuff like getting a robot guide dog for the blind old lady in Queens, like, holy shit, that's amazing.
All the side stories were so heartfelt.
Yes, finding that woman's grandfather and hearing about like loving the time that you have and not trying to waste anything, and oh my god, that was beautiful. And fucking Howard, Jesus Christ.
Howard the Pigeon Man.
How could they do this to me? I was so ready to be like, I swear to God, if I have to web zip another fucking batch of these stupid pigeons. And instead, they absolutely kick you in the emotional nutsack and have this beautiful moment without being too heavy about it of Howard saying, not a lot of people have treated me with kindness, because that's a guy who got laid off from his manufacturing job, who's been without a home, keeping these pigeons around New York City, and Spidey's just relates to him and vibes with him and is such a man of the people that he treats him well. Like, holy shit, that destroyed me. Like, really, really turned me inside out. And as far as the length of this game goes, I think the game director is right. I think he's right. I don't need this to be a 40-hour game. I don't need this to be a longer game than Spider-Man 1, when a lot of the stuff in Spider-Man 1 sucked in terms of stuff that added time. And I walked away from that without even attempting the platinum without the New Game Plus related stuff, because I didn't want to do any more fucking Radiant crimes that don't spawn consistently and may or may not actually appear based on where I'm swinging around. If I'm swinging around for 5 minutes in one district and you don't give me a Radiant crime and I need 5 of those, I'm out. Because that's 25 minutes of me wasting my fucking time.
Yeah, that sucks. That sucks.
This game was exactly as long as it needed to be. If they added 5 more hours of content to this game, I would be happy if it was good. But I don't want padding. And padding is what we would have gotten for them to extend the runtime of this game. It was as long as it needed to be. Everything felt like it, to a certain extent, spooled out the way it needed to. All comments earlier about relying on existing spider knowledge notwithstanding, nothing about this particularly felt narratively like it was rushed, like it didn't take the time it needed to. And that when I got to the end, I was extremely fucking satisfied having spent $70 on this game. It gave me a great experience. It is the best performing PlayStation 5 game that I have played. I had 0 performance issues with this game in performance mode. I had 2, and this is further down the goob scale. in my obnoxious column. I have a couple things, but they mostly made me laugh. Like
Spider Cube.
Yeah, Spider Cube we'll talk about. We'll talk about Spider Cube. But this is a technological marvel for a number of reasons, pun intended. Not the least of which is the fast travel system that none of us have mentioned. That is the coolest fucking thing I've ever seen a video game do with regards to fast travel.
Mean? That was in the 2-sentence review from Drew.
Drew led off with
it. It is amazing. And one last thing on side quests that I absolutely have to get on the record when we're thinking about Spider-Man and Spider-Man 2 next to each other is that almost all of these side quests in Spider-Man 1 dropped you into instanced versions of specific parts of New York City, and I fucking hated that. It is bad, lazy, shitty design choice that just caused nothing.
But that poison fog is just so bad.
The poison fog! Oh, the fish! Oh, it was fucking awful. It just turned all of the intro and outro getting in and out of side quests into a slow-ass jank fest, and that is gone now, and that is incredible technologically that they can just do those things. So like, no, I'm not hearing that with regards to those things.
All right, that was like 14 things that you just went through in 10 minutes. As far as the quality versus quantity, I don't want more padding. How they addressed some of the issues with the pacing of the side content, they fixed a lot of that. I don't want, just give me 10 more crimes to complete in each district and I'm going to be happy. No, that is not the case. But again, like we said, more of Peter and MJ's relationship, two people who had no chemistry in this game, and they touched so little on these things until it was relevant to, again, manufacture that conflict for a boss fight. More of Harry pre-symbiote, more of Harry as Agent Venom, developing him and Peter, giving Miles more to do in this game. They could have done Kraven well, which we still haven't talked about, but Kraven was awful in this game, and there is 12 more hours of meaningful gameplay here, not even related to the side content. And that's what I wish they would have done.
That's nuts, dude. 12 hours? No way.
Again, being in the business of like, they should have done this, they should have done that. I don't know. But there were things that were done less than stellar that could have been better. And that's how you get a little more playtime out of it. Yeah, I don't need to just pad things out with like 5 more waves per enemy base. Like that is bad. That's not what I want.
Can I ask if it's has a similar issue as the first one had that I remember, I think either you, EJ, or someone else talking about the game levying that they didn't give a lot of time to the Sinister Six, and that felt kind of rushed. Is there too many villains in this game?
No, which was nice, honestly. It felt more focused, but I don't think they gave Kraven the time he needed.
Yeah, they're not like main boss. Like, it's just kind of background stuff. Like Scorpion, Vulture, Shocker, or Electro. Like, Kraven kills them all. They're just gone.
Yeah.
They're
off
out.
Screen.
Off screen. Not even, it's in dialogue, offhand dialogue. So it's like, and there's Mysterio side stuff.
That is kind of a cool, like, back when, I thought Kraven was going to be a good villain, it was like a holy shit, this guy is not someone to fuck with. Like, he just murks all these guys, and you find out along the way. You don't see it. You see like a playback, like a security recording, but realizing slowly, uncovering that, like, oh wait, he's not trying to team up with these guys, he's fucking killing them. And of course we know Kraven the Hunter, so we knew that was a thing, but the way they did it to me was like such a chilling reveal of like, oh.
Can I make a statement and ask you two to weigh in on it?
Please.
I believe when considering the audiovisual Spider-Man canon, which is to say comics notwithstanding, because there have been many amazing symbiote stories in the comics, that this is the best symbiote story that has been done on audiovisual Spider-Man medium, when I consider Spider-Man 3, that's notoriously terrible in how it meted out the
low bar
symbiote,
low bar.
And the 90s Spider-Man with the shocker of him like running up looking for him, which has been memed to high hell. And Ultimate Spider-Man, which I want to shout out for the bros back home, aka Joey, which is great, but does not give you a Peter Parker symbiote story, even though you can play as Venom. I think this is the best symbiote story that has been done in audiovisual Spider-Man medium. What do you two think about that?
I would agree with that as well. There was one video game, I think it was like Spider-Man, like Web of Shadows or something like that. I played it on GameCube, where you get a bunch of Venomized other heroes, like Venomized Wolverine, that was cool. But I don't remember any of the story at all. So I will say factually that yes, this is the best.
Yeah, I mean, yeah, it's a low bar. That seems like of course it's the best because it's kind of the only, other than Spider-Man 3, it's kind of the one. So
real goopy
I like
in this one too, which was nice.
yeah, real goopy.
Did you like the way that just the way that Yuri Lowenthal performed Peter and the way that it was written, his progression through the symbiote, that he went from like rationalizing some like pretty reasonable things of like, well, I just need the suit to do these things and then we'll get it back to Harry. And then we move from that to, well, Harry doesn't really need the suit. I mean, like, even though he's literally fucking dying, like in real time, he's like, oh, Harry doesn't really need the suit.
With
like,
it than he can.
Yeah, it makes me a better Spider-Man, and how calm and collected and how at ease with that he was. And then they spent their Peter gets irrational with his loved ones tokens pretty selectively, I thought, so that it didn't become Spider-Man 3.
And that ties into why making Harry Venom was such a good choice, even though I went into this not wanting that. And after seeing how they butchered Kraven's story, I halfway through was like, I really hope they don't make Kraven Venom.
Insomniac or Sony try to like play off that like, oh, you think Harry's gonna be Venom, but nope.
No, they came out and said definitively that
it's not Eddie Brock.
Very directly. Both of the previous.
They did. Drew, you're right. They did. And I saw right the fuck through it. I was like, no.
Because I remember a previous podcast where you guys were talking about, okay, well, who do you think's going to be Venom if it's not Harry, which they clearly set up, but they have since in PR stuff said, not quite.
You know what's so funny? It was my like theory was more like, oh, leveraging the symbiote into getting Goblin. I mean, that would be the smart way to do this. And in a way, they did do that, just not the way that I maybe thought they were going to do.
Yeah, and you were adamant, and I will hold you to task for this lovingly, EJ, that you were like, it is not going to be Harry. You were really insistent that was not going to happen. And I did say, again, I'll be gentle with this. I'm not going to be a dick about it or anything, but I did say, like, man, I'm telling you, it's pretty fucking obvious it's going to be Harry for the majority of the game, and that I would have also loved to see Kraven's Last Stand with a Venomized Kraven boss fight. But we didn't get that. And again, I'm also glad because they really fucked up our boy.
That's just like Mario 3D World when Bowser got the cat costume.
Oh my God. No, I know I was really adamant about not wanting it to be, and I was like, they're teasing it. There has to be a misdirect. Like, spoiling it like this publicly is just such a shitty fucking move. There has to be a sick twist. And it wasn't. It was very on the nose, but I was, you know, and even when Harry finally gets the symbiote, I was kind of bummed. I was like, man, I was hoping they were going to do something more exciting. But narratively, it makes the most sense. And, you know, seeing Peter go through what he went through, having the history with Peter, even though it felt a little rushed, seeing Peter's heel turn and his eventual redemption, like we care when Harry gets the symbiote, and we understand the danger that the symbiote really presents. We understand it on a deeper level. Venom doesn't just become another Kraven, where it's like, oh, he's a scary monster now. And even though, and this is one of my gripes with the game, Venom is in the game for like 3 hours, and like we really do very little with Venom himself. That was disappointing. As far as your question about like Yuri Lowenthal and his performance, like to me, he is the definitive Spider-Man Peter Parker for me, a lifelong Spider-Man fan who has read the comics and watched the shows and the movies and played all these games. Yuri Lowenthal is the definitive Peter Parker for me. And seeing his performance as he slowly turns and gets a little darker and a little darker, and you even hear it in the way, like just in the side content, you hear that slow change in his timbre. And so I think that was done really well. I mean, yeah, this is the best symbiote story, and Yuri crushed it.
Goaty candidate, or a best performance in a game candidate at the Game Awards.
Sure.
It was that
Yes.
good.
He's got big teeth too, remember?
Yes. I think we touched on all the miles of side content. We didn't really dive too much into the Mysteriums. I really liked how those played out. And
yeah.
Am I crazy in saying that that's probably one of the few actually good boss fights in this game?
I mean, that was probably the best one.
No, yes, you're crazy. Is what I'm saying.
Yes, I'm crazy.
You're not crazy. I mean, look, listen. I had some boss fights I really liked, while also agreeing with some of your gripes that you'll talk about. I know, Nick. Stop. Just shut up. I don't count the number of negatives. It doesn't matter. I really like the Mysterio fight. I like the Sandman set piece. I really enjoyed the showdown between the Spider-Men, which felt like it was inevitable. I thought that was an excellently well done boss fight with narrative impact. Venom versus Kraven and the whole Venom playable sequence was like shocking and lovely, a lovely surprise.
That's the best boss fight of the game.
I liked the Scream fight. I liked Venom versus Peter with the fucking Venom wings. I liked Miles versus Lee. And to me, it felt like there was enough pattern recognition variation between each of the different phases of those fights that to me, they were meaningfully enough different in each phase that I had to learn some new patterns. But I do agree they could have been more distinctly different from phase to phase, but I really liked all of those. And that's like a lot of fights. Mysterio was super fucking cool though. The snow globe and like Mysterio's big skull face, like looking through the thing, like that was cool.
That was badass. And it didn't overstay its welcome. It was a concise boss fight.
Mm-hmm.
Let me go on a boss rant really quick, okay?
Do it.
Because I mentioned earlier, this is what I think one of the greater failings of this game. Almost all of the boss fights are essentially identical. They're the same 3 to 5 phases. You get a cutscene with some QTEs, which I had QTEs turned off, so they were literally just cutscenes for me. And all the fights play out in the same little teeny arenas. In the Venom fight, I'm like, we're playing on the football field and the basketball court. Like, it was so fucking on the nose. It was like, I was watching a parody. That was way less forgivable than anything Topher Grace was a part of in Spider-Man 3. Like, that to me was so fucking hokey. And there's, again, these tiny arenas, you're web zipping from arena to arena. It's the same phase, punch, couple of trash mobs. Okay, we get him down to his second health bar. Like, think about the first game, that final Doc Ock fight, and you're sliding down the edge of the building after you have the huge encounter at the top. Mr. Negative on the train. Completely different type of boss fight than we got. The best fights in this game, like, okay, Martin Lee versus Miles was cool, but it was the same fight as the first game. And it was so long because how invincible he was for those in-between phases where you're like waiting. Like, okay, I just have to sit here and dodge him for 30 seconds and wait for him to be vulnerable again. So to me, like, you know, even, and I don't want to say, you want to say expectations versus reality, but like they showed these trailers where like Venom is chasing Miles and Peter through the city and you're running on the side of a building. And to me, like, that's the promise of Venom in this world. But instead, you fight him once, he grows some fucking wings, and now we're fighting on a football field. It was so fucking lame to me, and they could have been so much more. I mean, even think about that Vulture versus Electro fight that we talked about last time. Like, you're in the air the whole time, and it's just massive area. And I know we keep talking about how this is such a technological achievement, and I'm like, the boss fights did not reflect that at all. All of the boss fights to me in this game were a step back from anything we've had before, and that was really disappointing for me.
EJ, health bars.
5 of them every time. And you know, there's some cool fights. Like you mentioned it, Chris. Like, obviously the Venom versus Kraven was the sickest boss fight in the game. Not only because it was so unexpected, but the way Venom felt at its core, it was still the same formula as every other boss fight in the game. Sandman, the best set piece in the game for sure.
That was a fantastic intro.
It was more QTEs than it was combat.
Yeah.
And it was a great set piece and getting flung across the city and then webbing back and then you're right back into being able to control your character. Like, that was a very great fucking way to open this game. But that is one of my major gripes with the game. All of it was just such a step back for me. And even like Scream was like Laura Bailey's performance was so good that it sort of saved what was otherwise, again, complete parody to me, where it was like we're having this emotional moment and then MJ gets thrown behind the couch and she pops up and you're like, what the fuck? This is really how they're doing this all of a sudden? And then they're just screaming at each other the whole time. Like,
well, the name of the symbiote is Scream, not Converse, so.
I think Scream is tight as fuck, okay? Spider-Man issue 52, Scarlet Spider. The front cover is Venom choking Ben Reilly out. And the bottom of the thing says, Venom's back, and he sure ain't a good guy. And you get Carnage, and you get Scream. This is before Scream even has a name. Venom thought she was dead. She got killed in, I think, a Lethal Protector issue where like she didn't have a name. She was just like generic symbiote spawn from Venom. And she was so fucking tight. They bring her back. I'm an OG Scream fan, okay? Scream's tight as fuck. It was still cheesy as shit, and I was so bummed by it.
Bro, Spider-Man is the cheesiest goddamn superhero on the face of the earth. You gotta be okay with some cheese. I liked that moment for the record, and I sent this to you in text, but Venom picks up MJ, and we hear just these awful fucking gurgling, choking noises where it's clear that he's like shoving symbiote. Like it's like that Batman Beyond episode, the first episode with Ink, where she just like pours into his mouth and then Terry like doubles over and throws up. Like it's just so awful in the best way. And then her standing up, I literally was like, and Tiffany's like, what is that? I was like, that's Scream, that's a fucking symbiote. So that was, no, I like the moment. Okay. I know you played this game a quadrillion times, Spider-Man 1, EJ. The way that you remember some of the boss fights that you just mentioned as shining examples of interesting boss design are literally quick time events. Like, I'm sorry, man, but Martin Lee on the train is literally push left, push square, push right, push square. It's not a fight.
Very true.
Well, that's all the fights, though. I just mean as far as the set piece and the diversity, whereas in this game, it's just the same thing over and over and over and over.
The side of the building with Doc Ock was cool, but it, again, was literally mash square. It was not that interesting. It just happened to be not in an arena in the same way that, I don't know, it didn't bother me going from like location to location in something like the Scream fight, because environmentally it gave me different ways to interact with her, like yanking down piles of pipes to stun her, trying to like web lock her when she's on the buildings because it would give me an opening for an attack. Like there was enough variation there, but the Spider-Man 1 boss fights, you have a little bit of rose-colored glasses for some of those, that they're really not that interesting and varied as you remember them. The tandem fights were fucking excellent, and they were undoubtedly better than almost anything we got in this game, for sure. The two-person fights, the Vulture and Electro fight and the Scorpion and Rhino fight, those were sick. Those were great.
Right.
Easily better than most of the things in this game.
I want to point out that I was critical of the boss fights 5 years ago, overall.
But you just use them as examples of things that we're not getting in this game.
I'm using them as examples of, if the boss fights are worse in this game, and I was critical of the boss fights before, imagine my fucking disappointment. That the one thing they really had the most room to improve, they were only able to make largely worse. That is just such an indictment of, like, what were they doing for the last 5 years?
Developing the fast travel system. They were making the game performant as fuck. They were creating all of these little things, like I talked about earlier, of like a mechanic to shoot baskets, building Coney Island and making the Midway games, a bicycle, which roast the bike all you want. I loved it. And if you're going to have a controller that costs so much goddamn much money, you better give me some haptics that make me feel like I'm riding a bike, or that I can hear my footprints and my footsteps and feel them vibrating. I like that stuff. I think it's great. And I would much rather do that and have those things present, and that you expended resources in making this a video game than having 10% better boss encounters. That's just me, though.
I have a lot of red in my document. We've gone through a lot of things.
You got red in your ledger.
Marvel reference.
We talked a little bit about side content. As far as collectibles go, I've talked a lot about in the first game, how much I loved the backpacks and the photo ops because of the insight into the lore of this particular universe. We learned so much about how they twisted the canon to fit what they wanted in this world. And those were two really awesome ways to do it. And then in Miles, we got much more personal collectibles, with the mixtapes, and then later with his dad's recordings for him. Collectibles in this game, Robbie's photo ops, for me, didn't quite hit the same level. Spider bots were really obnoxious. I mean, what did you think about the collectibles in this game? And how do they stack up for you?
I didn't mind them. A collectible is a checklist for me. It doesn't matter what it is, I'm going to get it. So it's not like, man, that collectible was really meaningful for me, because when it comes down to it, it's a checklist nonetheless. So it didn't bother me. You could say that the spider bots are just a worse backpack. They're just all based off of some random, either, spider suit or different Spider-Man or different villain or something. I liked the little Prowler bases that you did as Miles. Because when you finished them all, you actually got, it wasn't, just, the checklist is done. You got the ability, I don't remember what it was, but you got something that you use in combat.
It has something to do with Miles going invisible and getting an extra special attack out of that, I think. But since we never went invisible, we never used it.
Yeah. But I mean, at least it rewarded you with something other than just with the spider bots. That was a cool little Spider-Verse thing. But again, that's just a cinematic. I like it when you get a tangible thing.
Right.
So that was nice. And I honestly don't know if there was any of that in the first one. It was all just, you got suits for getting all the backpacks and photo ops and stuff. But if you didn't want to see Peter in his underwear, it didn't matter.
I hated the spider bots. Hated them. I am a guy that wants to see where the things I can do are. I did not enjoy the fact that I had to spend a fairly solid amount of time just swinging and flying around the city trying to see the stupid little bubbles. I thought that it was right there for them to make you do that for a little bit, and then for Genki, who was deeply integrated into this quest thread, to go, I've figured out how to track their signatures now that you've given me 12 of these bots or whatever, and then I can see them on the map. And it felt like they were going to, in the dialogue, you just give me a couple more and I'll be able to figure out where the signal's coming from. And that just ended up being we can't get to the end of the quest yet because I need more of the bots. And that was, I really did not like that. I did like the photos, because while it is a mechanic that we've already experienced in terms of NYC in the first game, it was the landmarks, right? It was the big stuff, the Empire State Building, the Avengers Tower, Oscorp, stuff like that. But I like that Robbie, and this is a quote I really zeroed in on that really I thought was at the heart of this game, was, don't show me the city, show me New York. And so these photo ops were so much more about what it means to be a New Yorker and the culture of New York. We see people playing, throwing a Captain America frisbee across two building tops in Brooklyn. We see people who've turned an old water tower into a bar club. We see street vendors. We see dueling bodegas with their mascots that are ripping each other off.
Little Easter egg. Do you know who did the voice for the two bodega cats? It was Nathan Fillion and Alan Tudyk.
What?
Really?
Yeah.
That's great. I love that.
There's 10 minutes of dialogue if you just stand in front of them. They'll just go back and forth. But it's so great.
So I loved that. I was like, this is a cool way to keep the photography feature, which you got to do, right? Peter's a photographer. You got to have a photo mechanic, and you've already got it programmed, so you might as well use it. But to make it something that is meaningfully different, and again, Spider-Man as the hero of the people and a really ground level hero. I liked that. Spider-Bots, dumb as fuck. Never do it again. Give me waypoints. Give me goddamn minimap icons.
There was an upgrade you could get that would put them on the minimap.
No! Was it the one that shows the tech boxes? Does that also...
One of the branches in one of the suit upgrade ability things.
No, you're kidding. You're kidding. I looked at those.
It doesn't show on the map.
Just the minimap.
It's like the tech crates where it only shows up on the minimap when you're close enough. But if you're close enough to a spider bot to see
the
it,
thing anyway.
Exactly.
It doesn't.
So it didn't really do much.
As far as fast travel goes, Drew, you brought it up at the top. While the fast travel system is amazing, it's mind blowing. When you use it,
really
it's so
is.
fucking cool. I never used it.
And no one ever will do it once, and then you'll never touch it again because it's so fun to move around this world.
I ain't got time for this shit. You dropped me right on the waypoint. I got stuff to do. That's crazy that y'all didn't use it and my playtime still took longer. That's wild. I was like,
Yeah.
drop me in. And literally I'd get butterflies every time and would just go, and like tap Tiffany on the leg and be like, man, this is so cool. She's like, I know you're going to talk about it on the podcast, I'm sure.
AKA, I don't want to hear about it.
Yeah. She's like, you said it literally 17 times. Please stop telling me every single time.
I'm excited to see what games either from Insomniac or Sony or just in general try to implement something like that, just because of how instantaneous and precise it was.
Drew, what did you think of Peter Parker's humor specifically?
I'm trying to remember specific, little quips and stuff as compared to the first one. There, you got a bunch of grown men writing what they think is a funny quip thing, which sometimes can be a little cringe. But overall, I think it was very Spider-Man-y. He's going to say something that's going to make you groan half the time. That's Spider-Man. That's Pete. That's how it is. So it didn't bother me, but at the same time, I was like, oh, that's what he's saying right now.
The cheese, EJ, the cheese.
See, to me, the best Spider-Man runs are like Spider-Man's actually funny. And we've gotten to this place with Spider-Man in like mass media where it's just dad jokes. And people think like that's who Peter Parker is now. That's not who Peter Parker is supposed to be. And in the first game, we talked about how like it was sort of like on the fence of like he was quippy enough without being like, for example, I watched Deadpool yesterday, which I gave a 6 out of 10.
I am not having this conversation on the podcast. You're
that
a fucking lunatic.
Script is
what have I walked into?
Truly abysmal. Like it's unbelievable some of the things that they made Ryan Reynolds say. Or that he wrote himself. I don't know. Great action sequences. Anyway, the script, the things that Ryan Reynolds said in that movie was so high school level, like, this will be funny. And maybe that's Deadpool's character. But to make Peter Parker, I mean, there's nothing as egregious as that. But like moments where you're like, dude, that's bad. That's rough. I don't know how but that's just their interpretation, I guess, of like, who this Peter Parker is supposed to be, and I don't agree with it. And I think
he's a dork. He's not supposed to be cool. The jokes are not supposed to be good. He's a fucking dweeb. He gets beat up by Flash Thompson. That's who he is.
That's the point of when he puts on the mask and he's terrified, and the way he processes, he is literally able to be somebody that he can't be without that mask, and these things manifest and come out of him. Largely due to the terror of being in these situations, and so that's how
He's still himself. He's still himself. He's a dork.
As far as his humor, I rolled my eyes so many times, and by the end, I was mad. I was like, "This is Peter Parker's 25, not 55. What the fuck?" As far as like outside of like specifically dialogue, when criticizing the script, like I know there are a lot of issues with like MJ's arc, quote unquote. I say arc in quotes because it was pretty forced. Obviously, we have her like being upset with Peter, which we didn't get enough into, and then you see it resolve with Scream, and then the way she's working for the Bugle, but we only hear about it like twice, and then like the way she quits her job, like it's this monumental moment. I'm like, we didn't see any of this play out, but the way she calls Jonah and quits her job, I cringed so hard. I was like, this is awful. And so there were a lot of moments like that where I'm like, man, they're not being lazy. That's pretty disingenuous to like accuse someone of being lazy.
It's almost like there was another video game happening in the background that they like put all the story into, and then we got this one. It's like, oh, to know what's happening, you got to go play that one, but they didn't give us that one.
I agree.
Sounds like cut content from a rushed game. Am I right, DJ?
I'm telling you, this game was rushed. And you want to talk about technical things aside, but just how much narratively felt like could have been expanded even further. Things that, I mean, the puzzles are worse. The collectibles are worse. There were fewer podcasts or radio shows and no ability to replay them. There's no day-night cycle. You can't replay bases or missions. Like, all these things are clearly like, oh, we had to get this game out. We promise we're going to fix these things over the next year or two. This game was rushed. And that's probably because there were no non-VR titles at all this year. And they were like, this has to come out in 2023. And I know that the team who did Miles Morales was separate from the team that did this game. But based on what we're hearing, development on this game didn't start until 2020.
Which is weird.
Right.
You think they would have been developing a sequel like before the launch of the first game?
You would think. Of course, they had to wait to see how the reception is, how are sales before you greenlight something. But they started development right as COVID hit. That was 3.5 years ago. And this game, it's amazing what they did when you think they did it in 3 years, I guess, and from home for the most part. So, there's a little leeway in that. Like, okay, this game was completely made from in their underwear at home. Like that, that is a factor.
That's why they cut the underwear suit. It hit too close for them.
It hit too close to home, yeah. From a bug standpoint, there are a lot. Technically, this is an impressive game. And maybe this is because we were playing on different fidelity modes. Chris, you said you played on performance?
Always performance. I want 60 buttery, delicious frames per second. I don't need ray tracing. I don't need fucking puddle reflections. I want it to be performant, and I had 0 performance issues with this game.
Floating heads, the tofu spider, which you experienced, web wing only Spider-Man, buildings disappearing. I crashed probably 5 or 6 times over the course of my 3 days with this game. The biggest frustration for me was the contextual interact button just not appearing, and I would have to fucking restart from last checkpoint because it just wouldn't appear. It would just be a gray fucking circle no matter where I stood or how close I got. It was so maddening. Cutscenes not starting, like the auto start cutscenes, and again, you had to restart a checkpoint and reload it, and boom, it would play normally.
Drew, what did you experience with regards to this?
As far as that, nowhere near what EJ did. I think I crashed 3 times. And then I did have the contextual, hit triangle to interact with button. It was during the high school flashback where he's trying to get his web from under the photo lab thing. I was like standing on top of it and it wouldn't let me press it. And then at one point when you got one of the new Venom powers and, it does the little, we're going to teach you how to use it. Hold, R1 and press circle. And I would do that and nothing would happen. It wouldn't register that I was pressing any buttons. I'd keep having to reload, and I had to do it like 3 times.
I didn't even write that down. That happened to me like 3 times. Yeah, when they're trying to force you into using a new thing. Yeah, and I'm like, I don't. It's not. I don't understand what I'm supposed to be doing here.
I can't press any of these buttons.
I had a couple of those. I had one where it just crashed, and I don't remember at what point it was. But I will say that's the same number of crashes that I had with Miles Morales and Spider-Man Remastered. Never had any contextual button issues. When in the lead up to the anti-Venom reveal, when I got the 4th evolved Venom ability, that would not let me trigger at first. And what I ended up having to do was, prior to it giving me the prompt, I just started mashing the button prompt that I knew it was going to give me, and I just did the ability, and it just kind of like did an.
I think that's exactly where and what I did for that too.
Yes, and then of course Spider Tofu, which was so fucking funny. I don't know what it was, but I had unlocked a new suit and I wanted to go look at it, and I had paid for it and everything, and it was just a fucking gray cube, and I was like, this is really weird. I was like, I wonder, and so I clicked it. I clicked on it, and then when I got out of the menu, I was just a fucking gray cube, just like moving around doing gray cube things, and I could like jump up and fly, and my web wings were like 6 feet above the cube, but I could do all of, like, I could fight, I could fly, I could do everything, but I was just a little tofu, just a little block of tofu. And then on a restart of my PS5, it wasn't a problem again, but I was like, this is really funny to me.
They did patch that out in the latest update. I did read.
You could trigger it by going into photo mode and rapidly moving through your suits, and you could trigger it pretty reliably.
Really? God, it's funny. It kind of cracked me up, but I felt so poorly that you had a really like deep and broad experience with bad bugs, because that really sucks, man. Like, it should be able to run in graphics mode. Well, if they're going to include the option, it should work. And so I'm really sorry you experienced that.
Okay, so 2 things. One, I finally got a response from my support ticket that I submitted to Insomniac because I had some trophies glitch and quit tracking progress. So I beat the game at about 20, probably just shy of 23 hours. I had completed everything except for 2 trophies, which was the slackline takedowns and the evolved Venom kills, both of which I should have had completed, but they had stopped tracking. I went back to an old save. I tried to mess with it. I got into the new save and tried to do some things. Couldn't get him to trigger. I ended up submitting a ticket with Insomniac and saying, like, these trophies quit tracking. So hopefully they fix it in a patch. Well, I ended up like uninstalling and reinstalling the game. I logged out of PS Plus, and then I got the game reinstalled, and I went to my absolute newest save on record, and the Venom started tracking. So I got that done. I might have actually gotten that one before I even reinstalled the game, I think. And then I tried to do the slackline, and that wouldn't track, so I uninstalled, reinstalled. And I came in and I did like 4 different enemies, and I checked after every enemy, and it wasn't working. So I took a break. I came back an hour later, and for like 2 hours, I was going around trying to kill enemies. And mind you, this is not something you can just go do because you can't replay a base. Instead, here's what you have to fucking do. You have to go find either a burning crime or a monster hunt crime. But every single crime in the city now, post-game, has symbiotes running around. Even though we destroyed the symbiote and it killed everything, we still have symbiotes running around in the post-game. Doesn't make any fucking sense. Pretty annoying. So to do stealth in the post-game, you have to go, drop in, quickly fucking kill every single symbiote before any of the hunters or any of the fanatics, before they all die. So you have to fucking drop in, kill the symbiotes as quick as possible. As Miles, go stealth, run away from the fight, and then you can come in and do stealth. So that's why it took me like 3 more hours to freaking figure this out, is because I'm just roaming around the city trying to trigger these events. Well, anyway, I finally do it. I'm like going through this miserable fucking loop of trying to generate stealth encounters, and I'm checking my trophy, and it is still not tracking after every kill. I'm doing square and triangle, okay? Both takedowns and the stealth, the zip, zipping them up and tying them up. And then eventually it just tracked, and suddenly I was on 70% instead of 68%. I was like, whoa, boys, we might have it. So I just kept grinding it until I finally got all the way to 25 kills or whatever. And so it worked. But anyway, I submitted a ticket to Insomniac, and they responded to me last night, and they said, we're very sorry to hear that you're running into issues with trophies. This is an issue we are actively investigating, and we have a few follow-up questions. They said, okay, do you have the latest system updates? Yes. Have you tried manually syncing trophies? Yes. Did it occur in both visual modes? Does it occur if you disable 120 hertz? Does it occur if you disable VRR? And does it occur if you reset all the options at default? I played this game, and this was so amazing, on fidelity mode, maximum graphics, right? In 120 hertz mode, which my TV supports, and with variable refresh rate on smooth. So I was getting a 60 frames per second in fidelity mode, which is amazing. But that is probably why I encountered so many visual issues in this game, because that would have been the least tested setup. And at least based on this line of questioning, they think maybe that has something to do with why certain things aren't tracking properly. I don't know if that's true or not. But I just want to say it's amazing that I was able to fully utilize my expensive OLED TV and play in fidelity mode. I had to sacrifice nothing, and I got my buttery smooth frame rates. It was a dream to play from that standpoint. But it's funny to think about. That's probably what caused all these issues that neither of you really experienced.
I agree that is very frustrating. I have no objection to that. That just sucks. It just sucks, man, especially for folks who want that full completion.
Yeah.
Where are we on the goop scale?
Okay. I know we're going to dive into Craven at some point, and it's going to be not nearly as big of a conversation as we've made it out to be, but the okay for me was fewer non-Spidey moments. We still play as MJ. We had a side quest where we played as Haley, so it's much less obnoxious. There aren't like 12 forced stealth missions, which is great. There's still 3 of them. They gave MJ a weapon, so it's not as frustrating to get caught anymore. So it's improved in that sense. But I think on the other hand, at least the shit that she was doing in the first game was really crucial to the narrative. She is helping to uncover the mystery of the demons, and then later, like, directly interacting with the demons. Here, it is more about the set piece, or just giving her something to do, like her freeing the lizard, like completely inconsequential. But then we did get that sick ass horror scene in the tunnel. So I don't know, Drew, what are your thoughts on still having to play as MJ?
I will say I still didn't enjoy it, but I didn't enjoy it less. So it
Okay.
was still not great, but it was better than the first game. Like you said, because there's a weapon. It's not just a, he saw you, restart right away. Like you can take some hits.
You're dead, literally.
Yeah, you can take some hits and then go and hide and, use your
Right.
little laser thing again. So it was better. I do agree that the missions were not really narratively significant. It was pretty much just, here's a new area. We'll have MJ go in first, and then we'll go there with other people.
Turns out if you would have just given Spider-Man a stun gun, this game would have been 3 hours long.
He
not
had
23
electric
hours
webs
long.
in the first one.
Okay.
what the fuck?
He didn't need it.
I completely agree that MJ's stuff was a lot more stuff happening to her rather than her making stuff happen, which is a valid critique and one that I share, that she was a more active participant in the story development and being a partner to Peter, for sure. Look, you can one button take down any enemy with any character in this game as long as you are in stealth. That is a true statement. However, if MJ takes 2 hits, she's fucking worm food. And so all the whole discourse about, MJ's OP, no, she's fucking not. You literally 2 hits and she fucking dies. And if you get got in any sequence, you're going to take 2 hits like that. And it is over. So I do not buy that. And you're not making that argument, really. A lot of people have made that argument. It's a stupid argument. But I totally agree that this is way more things happening to MJ instead of MJ making things happen.
It's funny listening to the director or the creative director talk about how they wanted to make MJ the strong female protagonist, and making her playable was essential to this formula. But all the things, the very few saving graces from the first game in that regard, they completely stripped back here. And I was like, giving her a gun is not making her a strong female protagonist.
That's all marketing speak. That is all marketing speak, man. I saw that today too, and I was like, buddy, you're trying so hard. I get it. You need to say the right thing here, but just take the L, because it's a very valid L. And you strawmanning people by saying, they don't like that MJ has a weapon now. No, they don't like that she is not the one driving this.
She's not fun to play. That's what it comes down to. It's not, her parts aren't fun.
No, and again, thankfully there were fewer of them. Unfortunately, it came at the cost of MJ as a character and MJ's place in the narrative, where again, she's just sort of a device for Harry and Peter's relationship to sort of launch from. And that's unfortunate, because as many criticisms as I had of her in the first game, or her segments rather, her character was written well and her place in the story was done well. It's a bummer that we had to sacrifice those things to get less annoying gameplay. So, yet another criticism. Face animations in this game oscillate wildly between like, holy shit, I can't believe this is a game, to this is the worst thing I've seen since I played a PS2 game.
Yeah, I don't know what happened there. Chris and I were talking, and I think it's something with the lighting engine makes their eyes bug out.
Well, MJ specifically.
Specifically MJ's face probably had the biggest change, like between this looks good and this looks like a demon that wants to eat my soul.
She's gaunt, and her lips are weird, and her teeth are weird. And her teeth were weird in the last game.
Her eyes are so like sunken and dark. It's creepy.
But they're like bugged out of her gaunt face. She looks horrifying. Norman Osborn also looked terrible a lot of the time. Oh man, I was like, I can't believe this is a PS5 game, what I'm looking at here. But then you had some moments between Harry and Peter where you're like, whoa, this looks insane, right?
Yeah.
So it was all over the fucking map. Okay, I have two more major points that I want to talk to both of you guys about here. And Nick, I know you were part of the conversation about the propaganda backlash. Do you want to know how they dealt with the propaganda backlash in this game?
Tell me.
They completely pretended cops didn't exist in this universe and made a really shitty joke about Spider-Man tells Genki, we don't spy on people, when he tried to put a drone in the air. And that was how they dealt with it, was making a shitty joke about it.
So what happened to Yuri's character then?
So
That is not in this game.
Yuri becomes, like she does in the comic, she becomes Wraith, which is sort of an answer to what happens in the DLC of the last game, where she's after Hammerhead, and Hammerhead's crew kills her entire fucking SWAT team, and it's like a super traumatic thing for her, and it's really pretty cool, actually. So she's all fucked up. She's like Punisher, anti-hero. But because they wanted to completely avoid dealing with the propaganda bullshit from the last game, I think that was a huge detriment to what they could have and should have done with Wraith, who became kind of a side character that you interact with twice and have very little like actual dialogue with. And even though that side plot sets up Carnage in like a cool, interesting way, they just completely pretended it didn't exist. And that to me was like a huge failure. And I'm somebody who like, I didn't have any problem with the first game being like, all right, cops are good guys in this universe. That's not the end of the world. Like, you know what I mean? Like, I don't need everything to be a commentary on how fucked up things are in our universe, right? In the Spidey universe, the cops don't kill people. That's fucking great. But to turn that into a crass joke, acknowledging the backlash, and then essentially hand-waving and saying, fuck you, we don't care, this is a funny bit, that to me was a major failure. And it ruined Yuri's character, too, like in the process.
Yeah, I should have known better than to expect them to meaningfully try to reconcile with that when there are units to be sold to people that will literally not buy this game or play another Insomniac game if they try to hold police accountable for the stuff that happens in real life. Like, they were never going to do that, and I wish that they would have, and I do. Yeah, I clocked that too, EJ, where I was like, bull, that's all we're getting, huh? That's it.
Genki, we don't spy on people.
We don't spy on people.
Really,
like,
Peter?
Motherfucker, you literally spent a whole game spying on people. Pete, you did that.
No, I hated
that was
different
awful.
universe.
Awful. And Yuri's is whatever. I didn't play the DLC. I watched the video, so I'm just like, okay, you're angry now. Whatever. I don't really care. I'm like, okay, cool. The relationship's strained, and it just kind of was a thing, and her realizing maybe I shouldn't alienate the superpowered person who's trying to help me do the things I'm trying to do was like, all right, sure. Like, it just was.
Yeah, they missed a lot of opportunities with her.
Do
I
it,
think.
EJ. Crack it open.
Tell me about Craven. Where do you fall on the where does Craven fall on the goob scale for you?
You mean the cardboard cutout of Craven that we saw like 3 times?
Literally, dude. What a joke.
I mean, yeah, I guess he was the main villain, but like, was he?
He was certainly in the game 4 times longer than Venom, unfortunately. Yes.
That's not saying a lot.
They used Craven to set up maybe a cool DLC with the Chameleon, I guess. I don't know.
Yeah, I'm assuming Chameleon will be a DLC like with Carnage, but yeah, the Craven fight was cool. Venom Craven fight, the Peter Craven fight was fine. But yeah, he just kind of you knew he was in the game because there were hunters in the game. And that was the extent of Craven.
His fashion line.
Yeah.
Right, we needed a new faction to kill around the city so we could grind experience points to unlock suits.
Spider-Man doesn't kill. He doesn't spy on people. He doesn't kill.
You're right.
I didn't do any of those. Just if a random ancillary, this crime was. I didn't touch those. I didn't do any. They weren't tracked. There was no reason to do them.
I know. And then the comments the Spider-Man would make would be like, "Oh, if only my superpower was being 2 places at once." It's like, no, I'm just deliberately telling them to go fuck themselves.
Yep.
They made a mockery of both Craven as a character and specifically the Craven's Last Hunt storyline. I mean, he was such a 2-dimensional character, which, like, you could make the argument that, like, hey, in a story that's so personal and so interwoven with, like, Peter doing his heel turn and Harry turning into Venom, like, it's okay to just have a bad guy who's just there. Like, that's fine. But he's the quote-unquote main villain for the vast majority of this story. Again, you see Venom for a fraction of the 3 hours after Harry becomes Venom. And so you have this no personality, nothing emotionally resonant about his character. And then by the time we sort of understand his motivation, we don't care because it's been 15 hours and you find out he's sick and he's like, and then they kind of do the Craven's Last Hunt thing. But like, Kraven's Last Hunt works because we know that character. We've spent years with that character. And you come to understand this broken man looking for a purpose before his life ends, right? And he goes on this last hunt. He kills the spider, or so he thinks. He buries Peter Parker alive, and he dons the suit, and he becomes a hero before his inevitable death. And that is so fucking cool. And they don't do anything close to that. They throw in like a line of like, this will be my last hunt. And I'm like, okay, so they're still going to try and turn him into Venom maybe? And then they don't even do that. And I'm like, what? Like, so there's this guy we don't fucking care about who's not doing anything interesting. I'm glad they didn't end up going that route because of how poorly they handled his character. But like, he's just there so that there's some more goons running around the city, with Harry being the villain really of this story, and to have only been the bad guy for as little as he was. It's another failure for me that I can't believe they played through this game and said, yeah, this totally works. Like it was pretty silly. And also, in what world is this man coming to hunt Black Cat, but neither of the Spider-Men? Is it just because they don't kill? So he was like, they're not worthy opponents because they won't kill? Black Cat doesn't fucking kill people either. Like, what are we? She's just a cat burglar. What are we doing?
Yeah,
I don't get it.
No, that's true. Yeah, I sort of thought it was the no killing thing, and until he got the sense that there was a beast inside of Peter specifically, that he was like, "All right, I'm going to pull this out," and realizing he could set Miles and Lee against each other, for his own enjoyment. But man, for me, there's a lot I could excuse. Like I thought Kraven's death drive was interesting enough, except that they, in developing him, did the fucking Gore the God Butcher thing from Thor Love and Thunder, where all of the moments that would sell Kraven as this really powerful, interesting, dangerous villain happened off screen to other people. And the only time we actually got to see him is like a 2.5 minute cutscene of Scorpion trying to ambush him, which is a pre-recorded video that we're watching back, not in real time, and murking Scorpion with his own tail. That's it. And then it's like, oh my God, he's killing all these other characters that we don't get to see on screen.
And then the next time we see him, he stabs Peter, who couldn't stop him. And then Harry, untrained in the symbiote suit, kicks the fucking shit out of Kraven.
And again, I don't mind that because the symbiote is OP and is the most powerful thing in that moment. And Harry, when channeling his own rage in that moment, should canonically be able to beat Kraven, even if he is not like formally trained, because the symbiote's just going to respond, right? It's just going to do shit. But that is the one moment in this game that, remember I said Insomniac said, like, fuck your cutscenes, like we're making a video game. That is one moment they absolutely fell on their face. That instead of, I wanted a fight against Kraven where I got the sense through gameplay of how powerful he is. That every time I tried to execute a combo, Kraven catches me and throws me the other way. Every time I tried to do a finisher, he catches my leg and spins me around and throws me into a wall, right? Because the whole rest of the game is rooted in, we want you to play it to understand the way that these characters are and the power that they have, because that's what makes a video game, is that we learn through playing and doing and experience instead of watching. And that is a weird moment that I went, oh, here we go. I'm going to get the first Kraven fight and we're going to get how strong he is. And it's just, he catches Peter's fist and stabs him in the side and he dies. What the fuck was that? Totally felt like a waste of Kraven. Totally felt like a fucking waste of Kraven. I think they thought they were doing the Martin Lee to Otto and Sinister Six thing again with like, oh, Kraven's our antagonist and then Venom's going to take over, be the real, like the A plot and then the real A plot. You know what I mean? But it just that did not work at all. It was very frustrating.
And Martin Lee and Otto were so intertwined narratively because Otto has his need for revenge on fucking Norman, and Norman was the reason that Lee's parents are dead. And so you get both of these threads, and then they come together at the end. And even though, like, yeah, Otto shows up with the Sinister Six felt a little abrupt, the threads were still there, at least for Otto and Martin Lee to be working together, and it made sense. You didn't question it so much. Venom and Kraven have no relation whatsoever. And again, Venom is hardly in this game. You fight him one time, he makes Scream, he makes a bunch of symbiotes all over the city, which is like kind of a ludicrous
Which is
premise.
awesome. Which is awesome. For the record, I know that it's like weirdly non-canonical, and I sense that some of your hang up is the sense of like, well, he's not really able to do that. But I thought it was really cool. I thought it was a meaningful iteration on what makes Venom dangerous beyond just being big and alien, that this was a threat that had a much greater scope than the previous game, which every sequel should, in order for it to feel justified, should have at least a little bit, should have a meaningfully different overall like antagonist or objective. I thought it was awesome. I loved seeing all the little symbiote nests and going like, oh my God, like he like it's spreading, and it's really like the threat was so much bigger than what the Sinister Six alone would have been able to do.
I wrote down at one point, like, they were really speed running Venom's entire history, because the symbiote has a very deep, well, I say deep history. In recent years, they have expanded the lore of the symbiote. Like it being a hive mind and being this ancient being that's connected to all these other symbiotes across the multiverse. Like it's interesting. And so yeah, I didn't hate it. I just thought it was like, it was okay, Venom is finally the bad guy. But then he turns New York into a bunch of symbiotes, and we don't actually deal with Venom at all. Like, I'm like, dude, we could have had 3 Venom boss fights, you know? And like, him kidnapping MJ could have been as impactful as it was in the comics. Like, she has serious PTSD from being kidnapped by Venom. But instead, it turns into them at the dinner table, and then you get Scream all of a sudden. And it just felt so rushed. We understood the danger of the symbiote because of the way they slow played it with Peter turning and
exactly
his connection with Harry. We understood the danger of the symbiote. At no point in this game did Venom justify himself as being like the big bad of this game.
I would argue the playable Venom sequence justifies it, and I think actually it
was cool.
Really,
that was.
I think it's a really excellent example of not only like the way that gameplay can give you a sense of how powerful someone is versus just seeing them like stab somebody with their own tail in a cutscene, a la Kraven, right? But that giving the player control of this character and seeing the different ways that the same systems that they've built for our playable heroes work and how much more incredibly fucking overpowered they are within them, I got a clear and immediate sense of, oh, this is way bigger threat than Kraven is. Like being able to block and reflect every fucking projectile with a button press. I was like, oh, damn. Like Peter and Miles could never. And the fact that abilities came back so quickly, I was like, oh, Peter and Miles could never. And the fact that the symbiote surge is so incredibly overpowered with Venom, I was like, I understand how dangerous Venom is because you let me play Venom. That to me is the beauty of that sequence.
The threat that he poses to our heroes, like I wanted them to feel that. 3 Venom fights. When MJ gets kidnapped, it needs to be the sheer terror of like, oh my God, like, yeah, we know what the symbiote can do because we just killed Kraven and bit his fucking head off. Peter doesn't really understand the extent Venom can really go with his bloodlust. And maybe because this is a different Venom, like even throughout, like he was trying to get Peter, he's like, I want you to join us. It wasn't like I'm going to kill Spider-Man. It was join us, right? And so it was a little bit different take on the character, but like at no point did Peter or Miles understand the true gravity of like, this is the scariest thing you've ever faced.
I think Peter did. Peter was in it deep enough to understand how dangerous and not only like personally for Harry to use, but on a wider scale, what this could be like if it was more broadly replicated. I don't know. I see your point.
6
though.
more
Like,
hours with Venom?
I'm with you a little bit. Of course I want 6 more hours of Venom because Venom was great, man, but
19 more inches of Venom is all I asked for. And you know, I got like 4.5 inches of Venom in this game, and that was really fucking disappointing.
Oh, I felt like I got a decent 7.5, bit above average.
I mean, MJ got her Venom's worth, that's for sure.
We're going to get canceled for that. Where are we on the goop scale? Are we in the B? I have a few Bs.
We really touched on everything. Are puzzles in your B column?
No, I was okay with them. I liked the little atom puzzles. I thought it was a neat thing. The combining element puzzles, some of them were genuinely challenging in terms of sort of the tic-tac-toe of figuring out the different number of lines and how they intersect with each other. I think the last one in the garage, like at the end of the game, actually took me like 7 minutes. I was like, fuck, this is actually really hard. Which was fine. I liked the Prowler puzzles, just in terms of like finding the thing that could move and then trying to get into a directional position and pull them.
That scan feature was so fucking annoying.
I don't miss Pipe Dream. I don't miss combining elements. I'm glad that they let those go. And I like that it was less intrusive into my overall playthrough. That when I was doing those puzzles were a relatively minor part of the gameplay experience. I feel like that's how it should be for an action adventure game.
Agreed. Yeah, I liked the little, molecular combining of the things. That was a fun one. Be a little bead drone and shoot some rats. That was fun. But there were what, like 8 of them, of the little feast terminals, and that was it. So they were few and far enough in between that it. I still don't like the bike one, but Chris loves being on a bike. As Peter, I want to swing. I don't want to be riding a bike.
I'm with you. Those were a little obnoxious. Puzzles overall, I did a few of them and then immediately was like, this is annoying, and these are even worse than the last game, and I eventually skipped every single puzzle I ran into. Whole cloth. Nope, not doing this. Skip.
They weren't even hardly there. There was like 6 of them.
No. And then every hunter base, you're like doing the thing where you're like rotating, I was just like, skip. I'm not even wasting my time with this. Skip. Or not the hunter bases, but the drone.
Lines.
You follow the drone for 5 fucking minutes.
How could you even skip that?
You press start and you do skip activity.
Okay, yeah. No fucking wonder you only got 21 hours out of this game. Jesus Christ. You know what?
You skipped half the game.
Oh my God. For a week you've been telling me, this game is so short. Oh my God, this game's short. You've been fucking skipping content.
Oh, I skipped 7 hours of rotate the hologram? Really? 7 hours?
Dude, I loved being in the wind tunnel following the drone thing. That was so fun.
They designed They designed some awesome courses through New York City, like the one that takes you into a subway tunnel.
No, you can't skip those. You literally just skip the part where you go put your hand in the bird's butt and you get the hologram and you have to rotate it to line it up. That's the part I skipped every time. That was so annoying.
All right, I rescind my yelling.
Yeah, no, I didn't. There are things I wish you could skip that you can't.
I was are you kidding me? All right, I take it back. We're cool, homie.
But I put my hand in that bird's butt, and I was like, okay, sorry, bird. Those are horrifying sounds.
Have we not covered anything else?
I know we rated these earlier. You put this right above the first game. Or just right below the first game?
I put it right above the first game for me, purely because in my mind, gameplay is king, and this one is so much more fun to run around in the world than the other two. So that's why it's just slightly above the first one for me. Just purely existing in the world is more fun.
Man, they got their formula dialed.
Yeah. I'm intrigued. Obviously, it's a different team and an entirely different character, but I'm just so intrigued about how they're going to do traversal in Wolverine to make it even slightly as fun as this. Like, what do you do?
Wolverine's not about traversal. It's not about traversal. Spider-Man, definitely about traversal. Wolverine is about slashing people to fucking ribbons.
They're going to make it God of War.
Exactly. I was going to say, it's not going to be open world. It's going to be a lot more open zone.
They could just do X-23. I mean, that's exactly what Logan is. I don't know if they're going to do with that, if they're going to try to do like a trilogy and end with that, but they could easily do beat for beat God of War.
Yeah.
I mean, they could. I don't think Spider-Man is a very good blueprint for what Wolverine's going to be, and I think if they try to stick to it, it's going to be a really shitty game.
Yeah.
So we'll see. I'm not looking forward to it though. I want more Spider-Man. Give me a expand alone and a Spider-Man 3. I don't want to fucking think about anything else. And God forbid I have to wait 10 years to see how all of this shit resolves in universe. Oh, can you imagine being 40 waiting to see what happens with Norman Osborn? Get out of here.
EJ, are you
Fuck outta here.
I can't imagine being 40, period. EJ, is there anything on your list you haven't said yet?
No, other than I made a note about how frustrating it was that every NPC, not just like on the street, every major NPC that you fucking deal with in this game has the exact same face model. And sometimes at the same time, both of Mysterio's kidnappers have the same fucking face. Like the chick that Haley interacts with doing the graffiti has the same face as the kidnappers. All of the kids at the school that you interact with during the Miles Brooklyn Visions quests and sit there and talk to all have the exact same facial model. I'm like, they couldn't even change them out for the two people standing next to each other. So anyway, just another, bullet on the list of things that made me feel like this game was probably a little rushed. But other than that, we've hit everything.
I got some little stuff. Itty bitty. I appreciate that they do not have a new game plus requirement for the Platinum Trophy. I hate that. I think it's bad trophy design to manually increase the amount of engagement with your game. I'm glad that that's not a thing here. I appreciate that they, rather than doing the stupid suit power slot thing with regards to the Into the Spider-Verse animation and the animation effects on your combat, that once you have the suit, the Spider-Man Noir suit, it creates them as toggle on, toggle off menu options that you can switch. And I engage with that a lot, that when Peter was had the symbiote, I would toggle it off for his sections. And when I was playing as Miles, I would toggle it back on because it felt more thematically appropriate or not appropriate, as the case may be. And then once we got into Anti-Venom and Peter didn't have the suit on, I just left it on all the time. But I love that that was just a menu option, and I hope that they just start that standard from day one, moment one in the future. Moving from web swinging to navigating building walls is still fucking terrible, and I still had a lot of issues with, I would end up running horizontally and would try to switch to vertically, and it would just shift me the other direction horizontally, and I would have to stop, go back to crawling, face vertical, hold the run button again, and then run up the side of the building, where I'm like, how have you guys not figured out 8 directional movement on the side of a building from web swinging yet? That was a minor gripe, but I was like, okay, I see we still haven't fucking fixed that. Yeah, and I felt like with regards to Miles' story, this is something we've talked about a lot. I thought it was great, but I don't feel like his quest for Martin Lee progressed in the same way that the A plot in the game progressed, that he was getting closer and closer to Martin Lee, and then he found Martin Lee. It just kind of felt like this is a thing that Miles said he wanted to do, and nothing really meaningfully moved him in that direction until Kraven literally threw them in an arena together. And then we got all that payoff that we discussed. I just felt like that could have been developed more, that there was no sense that he was ever getting closer to that goal. It was just something he said he wanted to do. Do we want to take like 90 seconds a person to talk about what we want to see from Spider-Man 3?
I think I covered it pretty good. I want my expand alone with Miles while Peter takes a break, and then I want to resolve Peter with the potential goblins in Spider-Man 3. Whether they send him off into the sunset or kill him or just leave it as is, sure, but that's where I'm at.
Drew, what do you
I
want?
agree. I'm now that EJ said it, that sounds like a fantastic way to go. I hope if Spider-Man 3 is going to take another 5-6 years, we get something else in between, because I don't want to wait that long. Get a Miles Morales 2 or some other little standalone thing, but yeah, I'd be totally down with that.
I agree. I would like an expand-alone title, whether that is Miles that introduces Silk or whether it is just Silk. I would like it to involve that. And then Spider-Man 3, I either want Peter to be killed in the first act and to control Miles and Silk for the entire game as they track down the Goblin and navigate his desire for revenge, or that Peter comes out of retirement and has to stop the Goblin, and we have 3 distinctly playable Spider people that all have meaningful, well-developed stories and distinct abilities from one another. That is what I want. And then ending with Peter retiring, and that we fully pass the fucking baton and Peter can just go be Peter, and we don't play Peter Parker Spider-Man again. at the end of Spider-Man 3. I do not want him to have to be Spider-Man.
This is a trilogy. There's not after Spider-Man 3. I think they're done. I don't think there's going to be anything after.
No
Spider-Man.
fucking way. If they keep making money, and they made a fuckload of money on this game, fastest selling Sony tentpole, they said, 2.5 million units the first 2 days, something like that.
I would be very disappointed if you take the most iconic Spider-Man villain and then remove Spider-Man. Miles has his own villains, and at the end of the day, this is a Peter Parker story. Let Peter Parker see his arc to completion. I want to see him fight Green Goblin, and I want that interplay of this is my best friend's dad, or this is my best friend, right? Which we kind of did with Venom, obviously, but that'd be pretty disappointing for me. Killing him could be fine. It would be kind of shitty to think we have what I think is the definitive Peter Parker / Spider-Man, and they're going to get rid of him in order to keep making Spider-Man games without Peter Parker. We can have our cake and eat it too, And again, this isn't Naughty Dog. They don't need to do something that drastic to make a good story. There's so much potential. What if fucking Insomniac could do the Clone Saga justice, and we send Peter to Texas, right? What if we send him out to like Scarlet Spider? He was in Houston or whatever. There are potential avenues where we could let Miles be his own hero in his own city without necessarily just doing the cheap thing of all right, we have to kill our main guy to make our other guy feel like he has a reason to further the story. I don't know. But there's a lot of ways they can do it. Silk standalone feels weird because, again, we weren't even introduced to her in this game. She was in the second post-credit scene from
back
behind.
of her head.
You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Well, the fact that they didn't show the character model told me that this is clearly going to be a major figure moving forward, that they're we're not going to show that model until we have cast that person and done a fully realized model. So I'm following that breadcrumb tail to this is a playable character in the future.
Oh, eventually. Sure. That's the plan. Yeah. I have questions, and I hope the DLC resolves them. Why are there still symbiotes in the postgame? How is Carnage going to exist if we killed the symbiote?
Do we even know that there's going to be DLC? They announced the DLC for the first game before it even came out, and they have said nothing about DLC for this one.
They haven't confirmed anything. It would shock me if we didn't get DLC, especially because of how well this is selling.
I mean, I certainly think there would be, and I hope they do, but it's weird that they haven't said anything when they announced it before launch of the last game.
Based on Brian Innerhar's response to a similar question, someone had asked him, do you think the City That Never Sleeps DLC was a success? And he says, he kind of pussyfooted around the answer. He's well, I'm not going to get into sales numbers, but I think it was a success. So it tells me that DLC sold like shit. And so Sony is less keen to just greenlight something that's going to cost them millions of dollars to develop. Even though I think the DLC was a success, narratively, it was fun.
Instead of DLC, do we just get the expand-alone? And that's the DLC for this game?
I'd be happy if you can give me another 20-hour game 2 years from now. Fuck yeah. Let's do it.
That'd be great. Do Carnage, get Silk's origin story. Maybe we have a little symbiote shenanigans with regards to how she gets, her spider powers. I don't know. I'm cool with that too. We know we're getting Carnage, and it would be pretty bloated to try and do Green Goblin and Carnage in the same game.
Don't Spider-Man 3, please.
If there were ever a line to end this podcast on, please, Insomniac.